across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and I'll be your host for 3 thrilling hours of news, views and topical debate all the way to 10 o'clock. Get stuck in, get it off your chest, get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number. And I promise to play your message out. It is Tuesday, January the 13th. Here's what's coming up. In an hour or so, Ben Habib makes a return to the airwaves, and there is much to discuss. What does he think of his former party, Reform UK, welcoming with open arms ex-Tory Chancellor and Vaccine Minister Nadhim Zahawi? And given that this is Ben's first appearance since July, I'll get his overview of Labour's performance over the past 6 months of chaos. Ben, of course, now runs his own party, Advance UK. What would an advanced government do to tackle the migrant crisis, the cost of living crisis and the catastrophe of Britain's economy? What is Ben's verdict on crazy Ed Miliband's £4.5 trillion net zero madness, and so much more? The formidable Mr. Habib will be with me at 8 o'clock. In other news, as yet another migrant living at taxpayers' expense at an asylum seekers hotel is convicted of rape, has Britain imported a sex crime epidemic? Brace yourselves for the shock details. 0344499 1000. Also tonight, two-tier Kia's incredible claim, telling Labour MPs last night, I'm not kidding, he told them, he had a special meeting of Labour MPs, he said, immigration is firmly under control. Is it? What planet is this guy on? 0344499 1000. Plus, Labour's free speech enemies insist they are deadly serious about shutting down the world's biggest social media site, Twitter. And Keir hasn't posted one of his asinine tweets on X since last Thursday. Thank God for that. 0344499 1000. Why did a teachers' union celebrate a Jewish MP being banned from a school visit in his Bristol constituency? 0344499 1000. Also, why has Labour agreed to pay a terror suspect jailed at Guantanamo Bay a substantial compensation payout? What's it got to do with Britain? 0344499 1000. And after reports that the Ayatollah's mad mullahs have now killed more than 12,000 protesters, will Donald Trump launch a military strike on Iran? More to the point, should he? 0344499 1000. Don't forget, was it last week and the week before, President Trump did say if the Iranian government, if the Ayatollah's mad mullahs start killing protesters on the streets, America would not hesitate to take action. And a lot of people saying, well, 12,000 dead, about time you did something. He's talked about sanctions. Well, that isn't what anyone has in mind. Let's keep an eye on that situation. 0344499 1000. And finally, the one and only legendary Selina Scott joins me later to discuss the barbaric practice of halal meat slaughter and why the unconscionably cruel Islamic method of killing animals is conspicuous by its absence in Labour's 12,500-word animal welfare paper. Animal welfare campaigner Selina is angry. I'm angry. Are you? If not, why not? 0344499 1000. All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Tuesday night together. And what a great show we've got lined up for you. As I say, in an hour's time, Ben Habib will stage his sensational return to talk. Looking forward to chatting to him. But I'm also looking forward to the next sizzling 60 minutes or so, because I will spend them in the outstanding company of barrister and social and political commentator Stephen Barrett. Welcome, Stephen.
Hi, good evening. It's good to be here.
Always a pleasure. OK. Now, first of all, let's talk about... I think there's an argument now that Britain may have, inadvertently almost, imported a sex crime epidemic. We're talking about asylum seekers. We're talking about foreign nationals. We're talking about migrants who are all let into this country, and an alarmingly disproportionate number of them are committing sex offences. The statistics are quite worrying, to say the least. Let's run through some of them, shall we? We're talking about this because yesterday or today we learned that yet another asylum seeker has been jailed for rape. This guy's name was Mehmet Ogur. He was living at taxpayers' expense at the Holiday Inn Express Hotel in Tamworth, Staffordshire. 27-year-old Ogur attacked an 18-year-old girl in a park. Stafford Crown Court heard how he sent his victim a message subsequently to say, "I'm really sorry. I didn't actually want to do this, but I couldn't stop myself. I am sorry for trying to force you to have sex." I think you'll find he did a lot more than try to force that poor girl to have sex. He did force her to have sex, because he was found guilty not only of attempted rape, but of rape, and has been sentenced to 7 years in jail. Now we come to the statistics. Now, we've heard, you know, we all remember the terrible Warwickshire case of the two allegedly 17-year-old Afghanis who raped that poor 15-year-old vulnerable girl. I remember last year, I believe it was an Afghanistan national arrived here, was immediately billeted in a hotel in Falkirk in Scotland, walked straight out, found himself a vulnerable 15-year-old girl, always underage, took her behind a pub and viciously raped her, got 12 years. These are just a couple of examples. There are many more, as we know. Here's the statistics. So from 2021 to 2023, of the total of 16,771 sex offence convictions, around 2,500 were of foreign nationals. That is 15% of sex crimes where nationality was specified. So in quite a few cases, nationality never comes up. It's not recorded, which in itself is a bit of a scandal. We do need to know these details. Experts believe that if nationality was known in every case of sex offences, sex convictions, the figure could be as high as 23%. The statistics, the frightening statistics go on. Between 2021 and 2023, foreign nationals were 71% more likely to be convicted of sex crimes than British citizens. And from 2021 until last year, 2024, the number of sex offence convictions for foreigners increased by 62%, as opposed to a 39% increase for British nationals. We have, Stephen, as I said originally in my monologue, we've imported a sex crime epidemic, haven't we?
Well, you and I didn't do it, Kev, but successive governments have done this.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid that is Tory governments and Labour governments. But what has really done this is that there has been an omerta amongst so-called elite people that if you dared to oppose boat migration, you were a racist, and therefore you were, you know, not a respectable person. You must be cast out and cancelled from life. This is utterly stupid. This has got nothing to do with race. I note, by the way, that those British nationals who are not committing the sex crimes, or who are committing far fewer proportionate sex crimes, are very diverse people, because we are a very diverse country. So the idea that this is about ethnicity or race is just absurd on its own merit. Mm-hmm. You do not let a bunch of men commit a crime and break into your country, then reward them with free stuff and accommodation and food and money, and then expect them to behave well. And I don't care what ethnicity any of those young men are. It doesn't make the slightest bit of difference. You simply don't let them do it. We wouldn't let the Russian army arrive here or I hope we wouldn't let the Russian army arrive here by dinghy. And we simply cannot have the world's criminals arriving by soft boat and then being just treated as though they're visiting celebrities, which is what we've done. Labour have absolutely intensified this. I know your stats were from 2020 to 2023. It comes out as something that's over 2 a day. That's a day. Mm-hmm. You know, that we are hearing these stories daily, and often because I'm a bit obsessed with Twitter, I see these stories, and you do see more than one a day. Now that's where we are at. This is objectively stupid. Our Prime Minister has done nothing to smash the gangs. He promised that he would stop this. We should have a border. We can enforce a border. And yet successive governments, be they Conservative or Labour, have done nothing.
Exactly right. And the Sun newspaper and the Mail on Sunday, back in the summer, went through all the convictions and the charges, mainly charges of not just sex offences but serious criminal offences, a lot of violent offences included. And they found that court records showed that at least 1 in every 100 migrants housed in asylum seeker hotels has been hauled before magistrates, or was hauled before magistrates last year. Now, this was around about July that this story was printed by the Sun, and at that point they had collated a total of 339 cases. Now, the thing is, Stephen, I mean, so this is a thing. There is something going on here. We have imported a lot of mainly young men, and we're going to classify them like this, not of military age, which of course they are, but more germanely to this discussion, of sexually active age. They are usually between the age of 16 and 35. They come here from different cultures, where women are perhaps not so respected as they are here. They also come from cultures where women are covered up from ankle to head. They come here where British women, of course, are allowed to dress exactly how they want, quite rightly, and it seems to be a rather volatile cocktail.
Of course it is.
So we have imported a sex crime epidemic and arguably also a crime epidemic. We don't speak about this enough, do we?
No, we also need to talk about how the lessons we're teaching them, because we are sending signals, okay? So they know that they are illegal migrants, and they are crowded around France's beaches, desperately trying to commit crime again. They know that they are criminals, and they know that when they come here, with the lesson we will teach them, the British state will not treat them toughly, will not treat them harshly, will not deal with them like a responsible parent would to any wayward child. No, the British state will fake them, will give them free money and luxury hotels and food and everything else, and we won't criticize them. And there's some evidence. I mean, the amount of luxuries poured on their heads is absolutely ridiculous. And by doing that, we are sending a message: please come, please treat us like absolute scum. We have no self-respect. That's the message our island is sending. Come here, nick our money, do whatever you want to our children and our women. We have no self-respect. We're not going to do anything to you. The places that a lot of these people come from would never allow them to get away with this. So the fact that they mouth it off in court and our judges and our lawyers nod along as though it's in any way rational is complete gibberish. Again, it's a sort of inverse racism of the British state. A lot of the places these people come from would deal with them very severely if they tried any of this with them. they'll all have the death penalty and be more than happy to deal with wrong-uns. We are constantly sending the message, come to Britain, steal our stuff, do whatever you like to our children and women. We have no self-respect as a country. We will let you do whatever you like, and we'll feed you and house you and make you warm while you do it.
I think while we're at it, Stephen, we should be telling these people that we allow into the country no questions asked. We don't know anything about most of them. We have over 100,000 around the country, asylum seekers. 30,000 or so of them are in hotels. Others are in other forms of accommodation, houses of multiple occupation, military camps, and so on. They're all over the country. And frankly, too many of them do not respect us. We should be talking to these people and say, listen, you are our guests. We expect you to treat this country with respect, and we expect you to behave in a way that is commensurate with the courtesy we have treated you. But no. What was it? There was a case 3 weeks ago. More and more, as a barrister, you'll know about this. I don't blame barristers for doing this, but more and more you get these asylum seekers, migrants in the dock accused of rape or sexual assault, and the defence is, well, you see, where he comes from, Afghanistan, Syria or wherever, they don't sort of feel that rape is quite as bad as it is. It's the cultural difference. And what was that case about 3 or 4 weeks ago? The Moroccan guy whose lawyers claimed in court, because he got done for upskirting, his lawyers claimed in court, oh, well, you see, the thing is, he comes from Morocco. It's upskirting is not a problem in Morocco. I guess largely in Morocco it would be up-burkering or something. Well, we looked it up. It's absolutely, quite rightly against the law in Morocco to upskirt. So the fact that more and more of these accused migrants and asylum seekers, their lawyers say, well, they're coming from countries where they don't quite understand our laws, they have different attitudes to women. Do you see, Your Honour? That's what's going on day in, day out. This is insane.
It's insane. It's also based on a form of racism which we are increasingly discovering that a lot of these so-called anti-racists who scream racist left, right and centre are actually quite racist. You have to be pretty racist to think that Morocco would allow men to just go around.
Exactly what I thought. Yeah.
What a ridiculous idea. Morocco is a very civilized country. It's developed. The idea that it's some sort of backward hellhole is itself a racist assumption. And we should reject it. They will not treat us with respect until we have self-respect for ourselves. And what gets me is that we have people like Lord Justice Bean, who sat on the Bell Hotel Epping case, a former Fabian who makes judgments and says things like these men are not de facto a danger. They are. So I don't really want the judges involved in this, because I think it corrupts them. I think he's destroyed his reputation, and I think he's damaged the reputation of the judiciary. But we shouldn't have judges saying obviously stupid things. These men are obviously dangerous. They should be treated as de facto dangerous, and they should probably be locked up until we can determine who they are and what they are doing here, and until we can get rid of them. The idea that you just put a bunch of people who break into your country and who lie about who they are, who destroy their documentation, you just put them in a bunch of hotels in Tamworth and Nuneaton and everything will be fine, is obviously stupid. Our elite are obviously stupid, Kev.
They really are stupid. I mean, I'll give you one more case. You could go on for hours about the various cases that highlight the horror of what's going on in this country right now. But I remember last year there was the case of the... he said he was a schoolboy from somewhere something like Afghanistan, or it might have been Syria. He arrived in Bournemouth, he ended up in, and they put him into a school. It turned out he was not a schoolboy. He was like in his 20s, and he was a double murderer from Serbia. We didn't know that about him, and guess what? He went out on the town in Bournemouth to a nightclub and murdered someone. This is the insanity in which we are living, and I think British people shouldn't have to live like this. This is madness. Folks, you let me know what you think. Have we, and do we continue to import a sex crime epidemic. And anyone who wants to say, oh yeah, well, the vast majority of rapes are by, you know, what British blokes, you know, white British citizens, males. Yeah, of course they are. Because we have 79 million or 70 million people living in this country, and most of them are white and British. However, do not let the Guardian readers delude you. The amount of sex crimes committed by asylum seekers and migrants is disproportionately off the scale. The percentages are terrifying. Let me know what you think, folks. 0344 499 1000. I'm still with Stephen Barrett, and when Stephen and I come back after these messages, we're going to talk more about the migrant crisis. And Stephen, you're going to love it. An incredible claim that two-tier Keir Starmer made to his MPs last night. You will not believe it. That next, folks. Stay tuned.
This is nothing short of violence against women and girls. We are seeing online children being undressed, the sexualization of images of children. It is illegal. I don't want to ban any social media platform, but they have to get their house in order or face the consequences. It was insulting when they decided to allow the premium feature to continue, i.e. if you pay for it, you can sexualise an image of a child. That is absolutely sick, it's vile, and it's frankly not in line with British values.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with barrister and political and social commentator Stephen Barrett. You're going to love this one, Stephen. Last night, you know, like there's a lot of disquiet, as you can imagine, among Labour MPs, the backbenchers, the MPs who worry about their chances of being re-elected. They're not happy with the performance of this government on so many levels, in so many areas, as you can imagine: the economy, the cost of living crisis, net zero, etc., 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 and of course the migrant crisis, which recently was classified as the #1 concern of British people. It's not the economy stupid, it's the migrant crisis stupid. And I'm not talking to you, of course. I'm just paraphrasing Bill Clinton. So he called together, you're going to love this, he called together all the Labour MPs last night for a special meeting last night. Uncharacteristically, he arrived 8 minutes early. He's apparently notoriously late for this kind of thing. He turned up. Guess what he told them? This is a quote. "Immigration is firmly under control." What planet is this guy on?
He just lies, Kev. That's all he is. They just lie. They come from a school of thought. If viewers and listeners will forgive me, but it's from this intellectual called Foucault. It's called postmodernism. They don't believe there is any objective reality, so they just think that they can control truth by lying.
Yep.
If they lie often enough, we'll just believe them. It's complete nonsense. And whenever humans believe this, they've gone completely off off the cliff of rationality, because there is objective rationality and objective truth, Kev. That's what walls are. And if you think there's no objective truth, run head first at the nearest wall and tell me how you do. But that's what he is, and this is why he's boycotting Twitter, because he's been community noted 21 times. That's 21 lies. I mean, I think Andrew
I
Neil...
didn't realise that. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. He wants to be able to lie freely. So let's say how that must have gone down. There are still decent people inside Labour.
Yep, I agree.
I mean, I flag up Jonathan Hinder, who's exceptionally good on stopping the puberty blocker trial that's going to mutilate kids. He's solid on that. There's another Labour MP called Graham Stringer who tried to defend the Chagos Islands. He's an absolutely solid bloke. So they will have sat there in this room knowing that he's lying through his teeth. And the only person who will have believed him is a moron like Tris Osborne, who just claps like a seal and believes any lie that Keir Starmer tells him.
Yeah, Tris, he's a Kent MP, isn't he? He's the one who, after 4 weeks of terrible weather, announced, and no migrant crosses, announced, yes, Labour's policies have solved the migrant crisis. The following day, after 4 weeks of no crossings, something like 780 people came across the channel. So that's Tristan Osborne for you.
But I mean, the brilliant wit that is Andrew Doyle created Titiana McGrath, and if it turns out that actually he's created this character of Tris Osborne, who is a fictitious Labour MP who just believes anything that the party says, I would believe that. That is now
Except
plausible.
Tris Osborne really does exist. There's another Kent MP who I think they've elevated to some minor ministerial role. He's the MP for Dover, Mike Tapp. He is, even by parliamentary standards, incredibly stupid. It's something to do with Kent MPs, I suppose. Perhaps I shouldn't besmirch all of them. But meanwhile, still with the migrant crisis, as Keir Starmer was assuring his MPs, immigration is firmly under control. What? It has been revealed, the Sun has revealed this. We have detention centre places, detention centres. It is a detention centre, but it's in 2 sites near Heathrow Airport. One in a place called Harmonsworth, I think, and the other in Colnbrook, which is around the airport, right? These places have 1,093 sort of rooms and beds, places for 1,093 migrants. The Sun has revealed today that each of these places costs taxpayers nearly £100,000 a year. As this depressing statistic emerges, we learn of Labour's latest weapon, the killer blow that they've come up with to destroy the migrant crisis forever. They've joined TikTok, and they've got an account called Secure Borders UK, which is caveated with the slogan, restoring order and control to our borders. This TikTok page includes footage of illegal migrants and foreign crooks being arrested, detained and deported. As if that happens all the time. I mean, it's very rare, isn't it? But going on to TikTok, isn't that a sign of the desperation of this government?
Well, he's just a pathetic and weak man. They are not controlling our border, and these men know it. That's why they come to France, to come here, get free housing, get free everything, free dentistry that we can't, by the way, access, priority GP treatment, all sorts of things that they get. That's because we are pathetic and weak. And we as a country need to have some self-respect again, because this really goes down to self-respect. Okay, they've ground us down. Okay, for years they've tried to pretend that we're racist and that there's something about our history that is uniquely bad, despite the fact that we are one of the only human civilizations to have ever abolished slavery, which is I take as a pretty high win. But, we have to have some self-esteem. We have to have some self-respect. And we have to demand that they do not treat us like this. This is not acceptable. And the men who do this, I sort of don't blame them half as much as I blame the government. It is the government who is doing this. This is Shabana Mahmood who lied. Do you remember Only a few months ago, she pretended that she'd got all sorts of new measures in place, which are complete tissue of nonsense. The woman has encouraged migration here, and we are incentivizing them to come. The idea that a TikTok account is going to achieve anything is complete nonsense. But this is it. We live in the age of weak, petty tyrants, and it's about time we got some self-respect and got rid of them.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that the Labour government has gone on to, or the Home Office has gone on to TikTok, apparently we're told, is to tackle misinformation on social media sites. Thank you very much from Labour. That's the most intriguing declaration since the BBC last week said that it must continue to be on X, on Twitter, to tackle misinformation. Well, all of you work at the BBC, or all of you are in the Labour Party or in the Labour government. Let me explain to you that you guys and women are the source of the misinformation. The level of self-delusion here is off the scale, isn't it?
It is. It is, Kev. I mean, particularly on Iran, we're now seeing. I mean, the BBC is still trying to run the argument that there's some sort of economic protest going on when the country is actually rising up and trying to throw off Islamic dictators who oppress them and treat them like absolute scum. I mean, I don't mean to bring it up, but God willing that Iran might be free. The BBC is not the source of truth. It's not a source of respectability. The only people who believe it are Tris Osborne. I mean, that's it.
And Mike Tapp.
Well, I don't know. I find him a rather rougher piece of work. I'm not convinced he is. I think Tris Osborne is innocent but stupid. Yeah. Whereas I'm not convinced that Tapp or Brash are. And before we besmirch Kent MP,
I think. Yeah. No. I want to talk about every. No, I think Mike Tapp is pretty stupid, to be fair.
He's vicious, though. I don't think he's nasty. He's just an idiot.
He before blocking me, he threatened to block me. I said, "Did you promise?" On Twitter, I said, "Do you promise?" And so he did. So he's out of my life. But he's the guy that goes. He goes onto the cliffs of Dover, playing kind of patriotic music, saying Labour is the patriotic party that will solve the migrant crisis. Mike, it isn't, and we can see it's not. Listen, Stephen, let's go to break now. When we come back, we'll return to, well, what I would say is an issue of free speech and Labour's insistence that it is deadly serious about potentially closing the world's biggest social media site, X, or Twitter as we all still call it. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned, folks.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with barrister and political commentator Stephen Barrett. Stephen, bear with me because I've got to break some breaking news. The Times newspaper, part of this building, same company as Talk, has just reported bring you the gory details as soon as we can, has just reported that Keir Starmer has abandoned plans for mandatory digital ID for workers amid concerns that it will undermine public trust in the scheme. Instead, they will be optional when they are introduced in 2029, with workers given the choice of whether to use other documents to verify their identity digitally instead. I'm not sure what he means by workers, but this looks like the makings of yet another legendary Keir Starmer U-turn.
Well, he'll just tell Tris Osborne that he hasn't done a U-turn, and Tris will believe him. So, you know, the Ralph Wiggum of politics will strike again. But it does look like U-turn 13 in major U-turns.
It is literally the 13th U-turn. If this is, as the Times is reporting, this will be his 13th U-turn. Unlucky for some, unlucky for his reputation for making decisions and sticking to them, right?
Well, he just is a liar. I mean, I can remember the day when I would not have gone on television or broadcast anything accusing anybody from any party of being a liar. You would hold back and you would say, well, I disagree with them, and you know, perhaps they're understanding something differently, and you try and work it out. It's still technically the rule in the House of Commons that you can't call him a liar, but he is a liar. That's all he does, and this is incredibly difficult for the system to deal with, because we are used to having prime ministers from all parties and you know, and all backgrounds who try at least to tell the truth, even if they have different opinions and different approaches. I don't believe this man even tries, and so I don't trust him that this is a full U-turn, because he's very good at doing partial U-turns. I mean, like the farm tax, where they're like, oh, well, we'll U-turn on anybody under something like, it's either 5 million or 10 million. Yeah. So we'll still cause the others to commit suicide. Oh, thanks. Great work. Yeah. The pub tax U-turn, where we might save pubs, but every other bit of the high street is going to be completely screwed over. So, you know, look forward to completely empty high street. I hope this is a major U-turn.
I think it is, Stephen. Let me just give you, I've got a few more details here. They're sketchy, but if you recall, the whole idea, or one of the main reasons that Labour pretended they needed digital IDs would be that they would be compulsory to verify someone's right to work in the UK. So you had to produce your digital ID to get a job. The idea was this will stop the black market economy with migrants and asylum seekers landing jobs all over the place when they shouldn't. So that's what it was all about, mainly to verify they made a big thing of it, remember, to verify someone's right to work in the UK. What they are now saying is that these digital ID cards will be optional when they are introduced in 2029, with workers given the choice of whether to use other documents to verify their identity digitally instead. Now, if you say to the British people, right, we're bringing in this £5 billion digital ID scheme. By the way, various government departments are currently scraping together £1.8 billion to launch the initial stages of this scheme, this Soviet-style papers, please system that nobody in this country wants. Well, if the government, as looks as if this is going to be the case, this is the Times, you know, this is not a sensationalist publication. If the government is going to make this not compulsory, is going to make it your choice, whether or not you have one, everybody's just going to say, I don't want one. So that's it. The digital ID scheme, if this story is true, is now officially dead. No one's going to go, do you know what, you don't have to have a digital ID card, but I'd love to have one. People just aren't going to have them. So there it is. You know, £1.8 billion scheme. Last week we learned that every government department has been told to make savings to scrape together £1.8 billion to launch the initial stages of this scheme. Now it's going to be optional. People just won't have it. So that's the end of this scheme, if this story is true, which I'm sure it is. That's extraordinary.
Well, I mean, communism and socialism are nasty and incompetent, and people forget just because it's. I mean, look, I focus on the nasty part, and it's true, but the incompetent part is also there. It's always there. The USSR wasn't capable of running itself. It was a basket case. That's why communism fails.
Yeah.
And this is just yet more basket caseness. I mean, they don't know their proverbial from their elbow, and you know they haven't the slightest clue what they're doing. They tried to pretend they were bringing in or getting rid of trial by jury, our 800-year-old right, our 800-year-old freedom, getting rid of that to get rid of the backlog, and then up stands Sarah Sackman in the House and says, "Oh well, even if there wasn't a backlog, we'd still get rid of it." So you just can't trust them as far as you can throw them. I mean, they say it's about work, but I've got a national insurance number, so have you.
Yeah, we never needed
employer
them.
could
No.
just use that.
Yeah, we don't need them. And this is the government source that told the Times that the compulsory element in terms of people being able to work, being able to get a job, quotes, was stopping conversation about what digital IDs could be used for generally. I think they're talking about the NHS, social services, etc. The source went on, stepping back from mandatory use cases will deflate one of the main points of contention. This is interesting. We do not want to risk there being cases of some 65-year-old in a rural area being barred from working because he hasn't installed the ID. In other words, digital IDs are going to be optional. I know what option the vast majority of British citizens are going to take. There it goes, folks. Digital IDs. Nice when we knew you. Bye-bye. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
You really have to question Labour ministers who are willing to keep going out defending this guy when he constantly U-turns. I mean, that is the absolute lowest of the low. What they all go on the channels, they all go on talk, they go on the television to defend his nonsense policies, and then the man U-turns on them and just throws them under a bus. That is not a respectable Prime Minister. That is not a respectable politician. Yeah. That is a joke of a man desperately clinging to office, which is all he's doing.
Yeah, and it's another example of this guy not really thinking things through, announcing them, a la the winter fuel allowance, the farmer's inheritance tax, not really thinking it through, suddenly receiving, after these announcements, this sort of avalanche of criticism and people being very, very fed up. He's stunned by the level of the protest. So what does he do? Oh, I know, I'll get rid of that policy. I'll U-turn. He's done it again by the looks of it. That is extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. Folks, let me know what you mean. Will you, now that digital IDs are not going to be compulsory, now that they are going to be optional, do you want one? Will you have one? I know what my answer is. Just quickly before we go to break, Stephen, I was going to ask you about X and Twitter. The government insisting it's deadly serious about shutting down the world's biggest social media site. I think it's more about its hatred of Elon Musk than anything else. Keir Starmer hasn't posted one of his asinine tweets on X now for 5 or 6 days since last Thursday. But interestingly, Yvette Cooper, the Foreign Secretary, yesterday put out several tweets about the horror in Iran. Pretty feeble tweets, of course. They call upon the Ayatollah to respect the right of Iranian citizens to peacefully protest. Yeah, Yvette, thanks for that. They've just killed 12,000 of them, so don't think they're really respecting the right to peacefully protest all that much, really. But she tweeted, so she's still using it. He hasn't used it since last Thursday. The row is ostensibly, allegedly, about this Grok facility, which people are using to take women's heads, like Julia Hartley-Brewer, who was subjected to this, and put a sort of bikini body on. I think that's terrible, and I think that's an intrusion on women's privacy and their dignity. But is it the worst offence on social media, where you get out-and-out hard porn, pedo porn, kids being exposed to that? That's serious. You know, women having bikini bodies put underneath their necks, you know, that's bad. It should be somehow stopped. But it's not the worst thing in the world. I don't think this is about worrying about bikini bodies. It's because Labour hate Elon Musk and they want to kick him where it hurts, right?
Yeah, and they just lie. And we're going to have to deal with this. I think it's going to be really hard for a lot of the country, because I still think an awful lot of us are used to a government that at least tries to be honest. And I'm really not sure that this government even tries. They just seem to be willing to say absolutely anything if it will get them the conclusion that they want. The idea, by the way, that he's going to shut down Twitter is complete nonsense. These are nasty and incompetent and weak people. Elon will just sue them into oblivion. This is not happening. So that the whole thing is pathetic. Yvette is defying the ban because they're all desperate to have his job. And the real tragedy of the Labour Party is that there's no obvious successor, or that I always get shot down when I suggest my chosen candidate, so I'm not going to do that.
Go on, who is it again? Who is it?
Well, I actually favour Angela Rayner, but that usually gets shot down pretty quick.
Yeah.
But,
can I just shoot you down about that?
well, it shouldn't be Tris Osborne, all right? Let's just all agree that. But,
okay, or Mike Tapp.
But the simple fact is, because they're a cult that recruits upon loyalty rather than merit, they don't have an obvious successor to them, because none of them have any skills or talents, because they weren't hired on the basis of skills or talent. And that is it's playing out in real time, and the public should see that. A properly functioning Labour Party would have reserves. It would have skilled people able to bring them up from the lower ranks, because that's how they were working. But you know, I don't think the Labour Party is going to be in any way functional until Graham Stringer and Maurice Glassman are in charge of it again, and Rosie Duffield is back.
Sensible people, I agree. Now, in the interests of a balance, it's only fair. Labour, Liz Kendall, for example, the Technology Secretary, will insist, as does Keir Starmer, this is nothing about Elon Musk. This is about, you know, protecting women and children on social media. That is their line. Here is the Technology Secretary, Liz Kendall, explaining that.
But X does not have to wait for the Ofcom investigation to conclude. They can choose to act sooner to ensure this abhorrent and illegal material cannot be shared on their platform. If they do not, Ofcom will have the backing of this government to use the full powers which Parliament has given them. And I would remind X and all other platforms that this includes the power to issue fines of up to 10% of a company's worldwide qualifying revenue. And in the most serious cases, Ofcom can apply for a court order to stop UK users accessing the site.
That is Labour's official line, as Liz Kendall just said. They have instigated an Ofcom investigation into this Grok syndrome. So that is their line. I think Stephen and I and many people believe our contention is this is something to do with their hatred of Elon Musk. Elon Musk hates them and they hate Elon Musk, but that's not what they say. They say they're genuinely trying to protect women and children. That is Labour's line. Let's go to break, and when we come back, I'm going to ask you why it is there's this prisoner in Guantanamo Bay, and the British government has agreed to pay him massive amounts of compensation for reasons that quite escape me. We'll talk about that next. The point being, this guy is a former client of the current Attorney General, the human rights lawyer Richard Hermer, Lord Hermer as he likes to be known now. We'll talk about that next.
This is nothing short of violence against women and girls. We are seeing online children being undressed, the sexualization of images of children. It is illegal. I don't want to ban any social media platform, but they have to get their house in order or face the consequences. It was insulting when they decided to allow the premium feature to continue, i.e. if you pay for it, you can sexualize an image of a child. That is absolutely sick. It's vile, and it's frankly not in line with British values.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Somebody's tweeting me or texted me in with a message, no name on it. Put your name on it next time, but it's a good question. Hi, Kev. Do you really think the government is going to spend millions on something for it only to be optional? Actually, it's billions. The digital ID scheme will cost billions. Do I think the government is going to spend billions on something for it only to be optional? Yeah. Because they're backtracking, they're U-turning, they're going to save face now, wasting a load of money on something that nobody will take them up on. That's Labour for you. They're stupid. Let's move on. Stephen, I'm still with Stephen Barrett, political commentator and barrister. A couple of stories I want to just run by you quickly. A snapshot of mad modern Britain, if you like. First of all, your thoughts on Labour MP Damien Egan being banned from a planned visit to a school in his Bristol North East constituency. This happened last September. He was banned specifically because he's Jewish and is a member of the Jewish Labour movement. So basically, the Palestine Solidarity Bristol group got together with the National Education Union and banned this guy, Mr. Egan, from visiting the school because of his innate support for Israel's actions in Gaza. I mean, I don't know whether Mr. Egan supports Israel's actions in Gaza or not. His crime, I think, is he's a member of the Jewish Labour movement who had their conference, funnily enough, over the weekend when this horror, this atrocity was revealed. The teachers, he was banned apparently because his presence due to Gaza would be unacceptable to the teachers. The cancellation was celebrated on social media by the Palestine Solidarity Bristol group, which said it was a clear, I'm quoting here, a clear message that politicians who support Israel's action in Gaza are not welcome in our schools. That's anti-Semitism, isn't it?
Yeah, we have a real racism problem in this country with racism against Jewish people, and it's becoming impossible to ignore. I think it shames us as a nation. I don't want this. I don't want this to be modern Britain. I don't want modern Britain to be racist against anybody. But the only active racism we really seem to see day to day is against Jews. This is a Labour MP who had every right to visit the school. I do actually blame the head teacher, because a union can do whatever the hell it likes. A political campaign can make as much noise as it wants to. If the head teacher has a spine, the head teacher says it's my school and he's coming. You know, and that's it. And so I don't know who the head teacher is, whether it's a man or a woman. I don't know, but I do blame them. I think that they ought to have stood up against this, and I think far too often we are giving way to being cowards when we ought to stand up to racism, you know, and the sheer audacity of these people who no doubt would call us racist at the drop of a hat over anything, when this is really what's going on, and it's not acceptable. A British MP, frankly, of any standing, and there are some quite shockers, including amongst the independents right now, but they all ought to be able to visit a school, provided that they can talk to relatively old children, and provided the children are told that there are opposing viewpoints, and not indoctrinated. That's fine. That's engaging with democracy.
And by the way, the fact that Mr. Egan is a member of the Jewish Labour movement, who I said had their conference over the weekend when this fact emerged, it doesn't necessarily mean he supports Israel's actions in Gaza at all. So there are presumptions here. Now, bear with me, Stephen, because in fairness, fairness, I must read the statement from the National Education Union. This is from spokesperson at the Press Office, Caroline Cowie. The NEU is an organisation rooted in anti-racism in all forms, including anti-Semitism. The National Education Union head office had no knowledge that the school had rescinded the invite to the local MP until it was reported in the press yesterday. Indeed, the school is quoted as saying this was a decision that they took and the visit had been rescheduled. It is good that MPs, especially those in the party of government, seek to engage with schools, especially on issues such as the dire state of school funding, the intensity of teaching and the impact of social media on young people. It is also legitimate for constituents to express their views to MPs on national and international issues, including the extraordinary human suffering in Gaza. The NEU believes in democratic engagement. Central to that is dialogue and discussion, and sometimes this will include a robust exchange of views. That's a statement from the NEU. Let's quickly move on, because I just wanted to get your thoughts on this as a lawyer, Stephen. The Labour government, the British government, has agreed to hand a guy called Abu Zubaydah. He was arrested in Pakistan in 2002 and has been held at the America's Guantanamo Bay Detention Center in Cuba since 2006 with no charges. America contends this guy is a threat, a danger to global safety. He's held there, of course, on terror suspicions. Now, I don't want to get into whether or not people should be held at Guantanamo Bay by America without charging. That's a different issue, a different discussion. But the point is, the Americans just keep him under lock and key. They say he's a danger. Nothing else to do, so he launched legal action against Britain, claiming that our intelligence services, MI5 and MI6, were complicit in his alleged torture. His lawyer, when he launched his case, guess who that was? It was Richard Hermer, the current Attorney General. He is not Mr. Zubaydah's lawyer anymore, of course. Now, the Tory government, when this guy launched legal action, just said, no, we're not giving you a penny. Naturally, Labour has agreed a substantial compensation payout to a man the Americans say is a global menace. Why are we giving this guy money?
So the shortest answer is that I think the Supreme Court messed up. Lord Sales tried to convince them that we had nothing to do with this, because we obviously have nothing to do with this, and we should have a functioning legal system with clear rules. But Lord Sales was in the minority, and the Supreme Court said that this man had been wronged. They did not call for any financial compensation. There is no reason to give him money. So I'm afraid, Kev, the shortest answer is that I think the government is unlawfully using taxpayers' money and giving it to a man the Americans think is a terrorist. And there's no other way to put that. That's what I think David Lammy's doing. Not only is he doing that, he's also refusing to tell anybody how much of our money he's unlawfully given to this man the Americans think is a terrorist. And, you know, that's where we are today. This is the clown country we live in.
And I think we need to have, we the public, we the citizens of this country, need to have a discussion about the way this guy was treated so favourably, given that originally he was a client of the current Attorney General, Richard Herman. We need to talk about that. In the meantime, Stephen, what a fantastic hour. Always great to spend it with you. Thank you so much. Stephen Barrett there, barrister, political commentator and political social commentator as well. When we come back, much trailed, you're all aware of it now, but I'm very pleased to announce that Ben Habib, now the leader of the Advanced UK political party, will be joining me, returning to talk, if you like, for the first time since July. We have much to talk about, so you better stick around.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. He has been away from the Talk airwaves for far too long, last appearing on this fabulous station, I believe, in July. What a pleasure it is to welcome back former Reform UK Deputy Leader and now leader of the Advance UK Party, Ben Habib. Hi, Ben.
Hi, Kevin, and how lovely it is to be back. Thank you for having me on.
Always a pleasure. It always was a pleasure, and it's going to be a pleasure today. Now, we have much to talk about. I want to get, in a little while, your overview in the 7 months or so that we haven't had you on, of what your sort of verdict on 7 months of Labour rule. Don't laugh. And we'll go through some of the highlights, I should say lowlights, of Mr Starmer's regime. By the way, one thing we'll marshal your thoughts on, if you can. It has literally just emerged that he has now staged, old Starmer, his 13th U-turn. He has, the Times is now revealing, this broke only about 20 minutes ago, that digital ID cards will not be compulsory.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't take that at face value, Kevin.
Let's talk about that after the break. Let's talk about that after the break. The first thing I want to ask you about, obviously, is this. So let's just play Mr Nadeem Zahawi's magic moment yesterday when he was unveiled as the latest of many Tories, an increasing number of Tories, to defect to Reform UK. This guy, of course, is seen as a very big scalp because he was for about 23 minutes Chancellor of the Exchequer. Actually, I think it was about 8 weeks, but he wasn't. He likes to say, "Oh, former Chancellor." Yeah, well, not for very long you weren't, but he was a Chancellor, a Tory Chancellor. So definitely a big scalp. He was also, I would suggest, very controversially among Reform UK supporters, vaccine minister. We'll talk about that in a minute. But just a little recap, a reminder of what Nadeem Zahawi said yesterday as Nigel Farage unveiled him as his new recruit.
You know, in your heart of hearts, that our wonderful country is sick. How many of you at home have thought to yourselves that nothing works today?
I agree with him. I agree with a lot of the stuff he said. My problem with it, and I think a lot of people would say this, is there he was saying the country's broken, it's an absolute disaster, the migrant guys, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know, OK, Labour has made things worse in the last year and a half or so, but the state the country is in is down to Mr Zahawi's party, the Tories. 14 years of chronic mismanagement. That notwithstanding, your thoughts on the recruitment of Nadeem Zahawi, a dyed-in-the-wool Tory who was very open in his criticism of Nigel Farage when he was still working with Rishi Sunak, and a man who, I'll just play you this before you talk, Ben, a man who at a debate at the Oxford Union in 2014 said that we must keep the borders open because migration is a really, really great thing for the country. Have a listen to this.
The UK remits more than £2 billion overseas every year. Some of the poorest economies, like Somalia, are entirely dependent on money remitted by the Somali diaspora. Unlike official aid, remittances between family can't be embezzled or misspent by corrupt regimes. So significant cuts to immigration would cut off a major financial lifeline to the world's poorest, resulting in stronger demand for government aid.
So there you have it, Ben. At least in 2014, he wanted more and more immigration, more migration. Also, we learned yesterday, he hasn't confirmed this, but the word in Westminster is that he defected to Reform UK in high dudgeon after lobbying the Tories for a peerage. And when they said, no, you're a tax dodger, no way, off he went to Reform land. So your thoughts generally on this guy being the big scalp for Reform UK?
Well, the first thought, obviously, which I imagine most of your viewers have already had, is that Zahawi is part of the problem. He's not part of the solution. He's a globalist. You heard the way he described the need to look after Somalia. Since when did it become the British taxpayers' obligation to make sure that remittances could get back to Somalia, seamlessly without touching the hands of dictators and going through our aid system? He wanted that. He wanted mass migration. He sees it as a positive for the United Kingdom. He's also, you didn't mention it, but I'm sure you're aware, he's also on the record saying we should give an amnesty to all people who've entered the country illegally and just grant them asylum. And I think that was in 2013. Grant everyone who's entered the country illegally asylum, and let's move on. And of course, you mentioned the fact that he had his tax affairs questioned by HMRC at a time when he was actually Chancellor of the Exchequer, but did not make people aware.
Which is why he had to step down, Ben. You can't have a Chancellor of the Exchequer who's dodging his taxes.
Absolutely. So he was sacked by Rishi Sunak, but acceptable to Reform. And the thing that when I first saw him join Reform yesterday, I thought to myself, well, that's no surprise to me, because I've been watching Reform, and you would have heard me being quite critical of Reform over the last year and a bit, during which period Reform has taken on one Tory after another. Howard Cox, a colleague of mine, did a brilliant post yesterday on X in which he listed, I think, 20-odd former failed Tory MPs who had now joined Reform. And the trend towards taking on failed Tory MPs by Reform has just accelerated over the last year and a half, notwithstanding all the protestations by Reform that they wouldn't do it. Now, I understand the cunning need and the tactical need to do it. What Farage is doing is trying to own the political landscape. He wants momentum. He wants to keep the momentum going politically so that he can garner as much support as possible and give the appearance of having people capable of governing the country going forward. But the problem is there is no one who has been in government in the last 25 years, 30 years, that you would wish to have in government going forward, pretty much, with the exception of perhaps a handful of people. And the correct thing to do for Reform is not to go for the political expediency of infecting yourself with all the same people who created the problem, but clean the Augean stable out and get new people in who are actually pro-British, believe in this country, are not globalists like Zahawi, won't give in to the globalist agenda of mass migration and remittances back to Somalia for the benefit of the Somalians, and put our country first, our people first, and make the arguments for that. If Farage could stay true to that single principle, Reform would be in a much, much better place. But Zahawi's recruitment did not surprise me. It comes at the end of a long, long recruitment of failed Tories.
And what do you think, in terms of Reform UK, I'm sensing that you think this was a very bad move on Reform's part because, as it's not often I agree with the Lib Dems, but they said that the Reform UK party is in danger of turning into a retirement home for failed Tory MPs. And the way it's going, they've got a point. But here's the thing, Reform UK members, you know what people in Reform are like. I do too. I have a switchboard full of people from Reform UK. You will be amazed how many people have been in touch. For example, I've got Dan from Liverpool has rung in. He is one of many. Dan says, I am leaving Reform UK and I'm going to join Advance UK. This is specifically because of Zahawi. And let me tell you, Ben, and you know more about these people than I do, but I detect that the real thing, never mind his sort of betrayal on migration, but the real thing they don't like about Zahawi is he was one of the stormtroopers during the COVID crisis. He was the vaccine minister. And Reform UK people do not like that, do they?
Well, we now know, after much denials by the government, that actually the vaccine did cause serious physical harm to people, possibly the death of many, many people in this country. And this chap was at the press conference yesterday and told the reporter who asked questions about the vaccine not to be stupid. There's nothing stupid about questioning the vaccine itself. Even Farage recently was saying he was going to have an inquiry into the vaccine harms that had taken place as a result of the vaccines being shoved down our throats in 2019 and, in 2020 and early 2021. So Farage is not on the same page as Zahawi. Zahawi is not on the same page as Farage as far as vaccines are concerned, as far as lockdowns are concerned, as far as their view of each other is concerned. Farage is on the record saying that Zahawi is a deeply untrustworthy individual who needed to resign when he was Chancellor of the Exchequer. And Zahawi is on the record accusing Farage of being effectively a racist. And yet, there they were, sitting side by side. And it's a tactical maneuver one tactical maneuver too far for reform. I know the reform membership pretty much. Yeah. I was there when that reform membership was created. And it's not just about them, by the way. It's about the electorate, Kevin. And you'll know this, and viewers watching your show know this as well. The electorate do not want another globalist shill. They want a pro-British government to come in, one that will absolutely enforce our borders, will deregulate this country, ditch net zero, create jobs for British people first, housing for British people first, and put back the United Kingdom on its feet. That is not going to happen by taking on, as you rightly said earlier, 14 years of failed Tory MPs. It's not going to happen. The Tories are part of the problem. Farage keeps saying they're part of the problem, and then he goes on recruiting more and more of them. What Farage should do is actually take a leaf out of Advance UK's book and follow what the electorate want. The British people know what they want. They voted for it in 2016. The vote in 2016 to leave the EU was a vote to bring power back to this country, not for people like Zahawi.
Exactly right. Now, listen, Ben, let me ask you while I've got you on. You will be astonished how many of our viewers and listeners get in touch and saying, can't you persuade Farage and Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe to all get together and mend the bridges, heal their differences and forge forward as a united force again? What do you feel about that? What would be your answer to those people who say, come on, Ben, mend the bridges with Farage, get involved with reform again? Same for Rupert Lowe, but he's not here to talk for himself. What do you say to people like that?
I imagine Rupert would say what I'm about to say, which is that none of us wanted the split. The split only came about because Farage... So Farage is a fantastic campaigner. He's a fantastic tactician. What Farage doesn't have is a political philosophy and a strategic direction. And there's no way I would have split from reform. No way if I had believed that Farage would stay true to the mission, which is to restore the United Kingdom, which is the name that Rupert effectively adopted for his movement, Restore Britain. We have to go back to a position where this country understands what it is, where British citizenry means something, where our borders are enforced and so on and so forth. Farage, being the tactician that he is, I think is actually, for the first time in his career, missed where the British people are and the requirement not to take the easy route by getting into bed with a whole load of failed politicians who might give the impression of momentum. He should have eschewed that ostensibly easy route and taken the route actually, which I believe will be easier and is the correct route, which is to stand up for what the British people want. And what they want is serious, principled politics, actually putting this country first. It's as simple as that. Farage must know that in his heart of hearts, but I think in the pursuit of power, he's made some very, very big mistakes.
And you would classify Zahawi as one of those big mistakes?
Absolutely. And I would classify, Nadine Dorries, the architect of the Online Safety Act, as a big, big mistake. I'd classify Jake Berry, who voted Remain, was pro-lockdown, is pro-net zero. I'd class him as a mistake. I'd class putting Charlie Mullins forward, who's a complete arch-Europhile, forward as a candidate. That's a mistake. These mistakes have been coming fast throughout the last year and a half. It's just Zahawi he's touched a nerve with the membership of reform.
Yes, he has. You're right. It's almost as if this is one Tory too many. Now, I think it's only fair to say, in defence of reform, I've always said Reform UK or Reform, basically when they were formed, they came forward and said, all of you traditional Conservatives, let's face it, the left-wing Tories, the migrant-friendly, asylum-seeker-friendly Tories have left you. We saw Zahawi in 2014 at the Oxford Union saying, let them all in, poor Somalia and all that stuff. But it's only fair to say that I think some Tories, I would possibly classify Danny Kruger as one of them, felt as if they'd been disenfranchised by the Conservatives. They didn't leave the Conservative Party left them, and Reform UK offered, if you like, the new version of what traditional Conservatives used to be. Danny Kruger, I think always, it was palpable that he was very uncomfortable with the sort of Rishi Sunak's lefty version of conservatism. But what I would say about Zahawi, I've got nothing against him personally, but I don't know the inside story, but he looks to me to be like a guy who used to be important and influential and at the top of the tree, political tree, who was suddenly defenestrated, lost his seat, of course, and sees reform as a way of getting back that power and influence he once enjoyed. In other words, he's a chancer on the make. That's the problem. If Farage is seen to recruit chancers, opportunists who think, hey, this Tory party's on the way down, I'm going to leap across the house and join the party that's on the way out. If he does too much of that, people are going to smell a big rat.
Absolutely. And, I think it's extraordinary, for example, that they've taken on Zahawi and a whole load of other people of his political persuasion, and yet Reform has denounced Suella Braverman and Robert Jenrick, and said, I think Zaire Yusuf's on the record saying that neither of them would be welcome in the party. And I think Leila Cunningham said that she would be extremely unhappy if Robert Jenrick joined the party. Now, I don't know about the detailed views of Robert Jenrick and Suella Braverman. Actually, I've followed Suella Braverman quite closely over the last few years, so I know more about her than I do about Robert Jenrick. But at least from what they say, they are much more reform people than Zahawi. Zahawi is the antithesis. And yet they're throwing Jenrick and Braverman under a bus and putting their arms around Zahawi. Now, what I think Reform needs to do, it's not for me to advise Farage, it's for him to make his own decisions. But if he wants to regain the support of his people, he needs to start talking much more clearly about what it means to be British and what he's going to do for Britain, for the United Kingdom. That's what he needs to get reacquainted with. Not the pursuit for power, but the principles which underlie why he wishes to be in power. If he can get back to that fundamental foundational principles, then people like me wouldn't have to be in, and you asked me, what would get you back in the party? People like me wouldn't have to be doing what we're doing. Rupert Lowe's only doing Restore Britain because he wants to restore Britain. I'm only doing Advance UK because I want this country to be back on its feet again, moving forward confidently and prosperously. And so forget about the political momentum required to get into power. The British people are going to take any party that stands for them into office. They're going to do that at the next election.
Ben, fascinating and great to have you back on. Missed you. Let's go to break now. When we come back, we'll talk about more generally, Starmer's performance since Ben was last on. And as we alluded to earlier, this digital ID issue has just emerged in the last half an hour. Looks like a big backtrap, another U-turn, the 13th U-turn by old U-turn specialist Keir Starmer. Must get dizzy as to U-turn so often. We'll talk about that after these messages. Stick around.
This is nothing short of violence against women and girls. We are seeing online children being undressed, the sexualization of images of children. It is illegal. I don't want to ban any social media platform, but they have to get their house in order or face the consequences. It was insulting when they decided to allow the premium feature to continue, i.e. if you pay for it, you can sexualize an image of a child. That is absolutely sick, it's vile, and it's frankly not in line with British values.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I haven't said this for a long time, but I'm still with Advance UK Party leader Ben Habib. Ben, we were talking just now about digital IDs. It looks as if Starmer has staged something of a U-turn. You expressed your doubts, but this is a story in the Times, so it's not some sensationalist publication. They've only put this out about half an hour ago. Government source said that the compulsory element was stopping a conversation about what digital IDs could be used for generally. So you're probably talking about the NHS social services. But the whole point was, you remember Starmer making a big thing, no one in the United Kingdom will be allowed to work without a digital ID. In other words, the idea was to stamp down on migrant, asylum seeker, black market employment, all of that. Well, they've completely rescinded that. And from now on, it isn't going to be compulsory to have a digital ID to get a job. So the whole point of them seems to have been sort of negated.
Well, what I've heard is that the Home Office is incapable in the state that it's in to implement digital ID in the way that Starmer wants it implemented. So he's trying to make a virtue out of this U-turn. He's trying to go with the public opinion. But the reality, I think, Kevin, is going to be quite the opposite. They're going to continue to introduce digital ID initially through methods by which you can't refuse to take it. It won't be a legal obligation, but for example, if you're a director of a company at the moment and you wish to continue to be a director of the company, you have to give your digital ID to Companies House.
Yeah.
So, you know, and so that means no one who's an entrepreneur, anyone running a private business, effectively is having to do it. And there'll be other areas in which they will introduce it step by step until basically the entire ecosystem of the United Kingdom is digitally ID. And then they'll make it a requirement.
Yeah, so it's basically incompetence and incapability that will stop them bringing in it as hard as they wanted to. Yeah, I agree with you. We've got to be very careful. But this is a good day. This is a good day. It's good.
It is another U-turn. Evidence is yet again what a completely useless individual Starmer is and how hopeless their government is.
Which brings me nicely to what I'd like to discuss with you. A number of points. Let's run through some of the general areas of government where arguably Labour has failed catastrophically. What would Advance UK do? An Advance UK government, only a matter of time, of course, Ben. What would an Advance UK government do to solve the migrant crisis?
So the migrant crisis can be solved overnight if the British government wishes to do it. It won't come through border security control, which is this new thing that, well, it's not that new anymore. It's a couple of years old now. Starmer set up when he won the election. Do you remember border security control?
Yes. What is it they're called? Border Security Command, aren't they? So far, the government's given them
command. That's it.
Yeah. So far, the government has given them something like £200 million, high-tech equipment, drones, and everything,
and it came to nothing.
To smash the gangs, and they have yet to smash a single gang. That's best part of 2 years on. So what would you do?
Oh, it's easy. First of all, you get rid of all the international laws and the domestic laws that prohibit you from enforcing your borders and from deporting people. Then you instruct the British Navy, having done that, you instruct the British Navy by any means necessary, intercept these dinghies, use the best sensory equipment that we've got, drones, barriers, whatever it takes, fast boats, intercept these dinghies and require them to go back to France. Do not let them enter British territorial waters. And there is precedent for this. The Belgians do it very, very successfully for launches off their own beach. They're intercepted at sea, and these migrants, the would-be illegal migrants, are sent back to Belgium. There's been a 92% reduction in launches from Belgian shores. The French don't do it because the French, frankly, wish to export their problem to the United Kingdom. But if we intercepted these dinghies and enforced our borders, that's what border enforcement is, enforcing your borders, that would stop the flow dramatically. Then the second thing is you've got to detain everyone in this country who is here illegally, and then you've got to do the best you can to deport them to their countries. And where you haven't got deportation treaties, or you haven't got the ability to deal with the government because they're rogue and they're outside the international network, then you hold those people in detention until they voluntarily go somewhere else. But what you do not do is take them into the bosom of the United Kingdom, enrich them, and allow them to do the damage that they're doing, not just, by the way, from a security and law and order perspective, but also just fundamentally to the nature of our country, to the culture of our country, the way we operate, our whole way of life. That's what's being set aside in the pursuit of this ridiculous, what Gad Saad would call suicidal empathy. And so it's very easy, Kevin, what it ultimately boils down to is recognizing the importance of who we are as a sovereign state and then making sure that sovereignty is protected.
Absolutely. Now, I was going to ask you about the economy, what you do about the economy, but we haven't got too much time. So let's just assume what you would do would be to appoint a chancellor who knows anything about economics, as opposed to the current
That would be a start.
Yeah, as opposed to the one we've got at the moment. But just quickly, what would you do? We learned yesterday, this is grotesque, it is obscene, that the true extent of Ed Miliband, crazy Ed Miliband, the Net Zero Secretary's plans for Net Zero, that over the next 25 years, this was revealed by a government quango, these are official government figures that I don't think they wanted us to know about. Over the next 25 years, if we pursue all of Ed Miliband's plans, it will cost this country, Net Zero, £4.5 trillion. Along the way, businesses will die, people will continue to pay the highest energy bills in the world, which we do now, 5 times higher than America. So what would you do about net zero?
I would ditch it. It is the fastest way to becoming destitute. In the pursuit of this false ideology that somehow by cutting the less than 1% carbon emissions that the United Kingdom produces, that somehow we're going to save the globe, we will emasculate our economy. The working and middle classes will be absolutely decimated. The cost of living goes through the roof as a result of net zero, not just because we've got extra high costs of energy, but also you've got to get your housing up to energy performance certificate C rating by 2027, B rating by 2030. Your cars all will have to change from their perfectly good internal combustion engines to electric cars that frankly need charging every 5 minutes, and then you've got to wait for ages for the damn thing to charge up. The whole thing is utterly bizarre. And we've got to look across the Atlantic. It's absolutely bizarre. And, you know, people talk about free speech. They say, you know, why is the government clamping down on free speech? Well, if you perpetrate extreme ideologies and policies, like impoverishing the British people for no good reason, mass migration and setting aside what it means to be British, if you practice those extreme policies, you have to bear down on free speech. We haven't talked about it. The reason Starmer wants to get rid of X is because Starmer wants to shut us up. He doesn't want anyone challenging his incredibly damaging anti-British policies. But he's got another thing coming. The genie is out of the bottle. We see net zero for what it is. We see the damage of mass migration, multiculturalism, DEI. We see all of it. The British people are done with it. And the next government, this is an optimistic point, the next government is going to be a pro-British government, a one that will actually store the United Kingdom.
And let me ask you this finally. By the way, I've just written down that, find out what Ben thinks about free speech. So you've answered that one. Do you think Reform UK may well be the next government? What do you think?
I think on their current trajectory, highly unlikely. But I do think Advance UK, as implausible as some viewers might think it to be, has one of the best chances of forming a majority government at the next election. And the reason I say that, Kevin, is for the same reason, as a result of the same comments that I mentioned at the beginning of this program. The British people want what Advance is offering. All I need to do is make sure that Advance can connect with the British people. I don't need Zahawi. I don't need Jake Berry, Andrea Jenkins, Nadine Dorries, or any of the other recruits that Reform's taken. What Advance needs is simply to connect its message with the British people, and we are going to make an absolutely massive impact on the British political landscape.
Last question. As the BBC seeks to dismiss Donald Trump's, what is it now, $100 billion, $10 billion lawsuit about the panorama editing of his Capitol Hill speech. They're seeking to dismiss it by saying nobody in America saw that panorama programme. Unfortunately, I don't think they've heard of YouTube. But there you go. That's what they're trying to do. What would you do about the BBC TV licence?
It no longer has a right to be funded by the British taxpayer, but through the licence fee. It no longer has a right for that. It has to stand on its own 2 feet. It's discredited itself and revealed itself. Brilliant work by Michael Prescott, showing how they doctored Trump's speech to make it look like he was invoking violence. That was the proof that we all needed in this country. We all knew the BBC was a political activist, but that was the proof we needed to absolutely drive the point home. And now there can be no justification for that license fee. It's got to go. If the BBC wishes to reinvent itself in some other form, it needs to do so as a commercial enterprise.
Yeah, that's my view about the BBC. I'm all for the BBC. I don't want to axe the BBC. I just don't want to pay for it. And I certainly don't want to pay for it by law, compulsorily by law. That is ludicrous, anachronistic, and out of time. Ben, we're out of time, very sadly, but it's fantastic to have you back. I hope you'll be a regular again. Great to talk to you, Ben. The brilliant Ben Habib, but back for the first time since July. So it's good to have him back, isn't it? What do you think about some of the things he was saying? 03444991000. I'm getting a lot of response about Nadeem Zahawi. What do you think? Was that a masterstroke by Nigel Farage and Reform UK? Or is that one Tory too many? Your thoughts? 03444991000. Let's go to break. When we come back, we are going to talk to the excellent Dr. Alan Mendoza. He's the Executive Director at the Henry Jackson Institute about what's going on in Iran. Given that it was only last week, I believe, beginning of last week, Donald Trump said, if you start, he said to the Ayatollah essentially, you start killing your citizens as they protest against your awful theological tyranny, your dictatorship, your ruinous policies. If you start killing people, we will put you in your place. There will be serious reprisals from America. So we're thinking military action, bombing, something like that. Now, not only have the mad mullahs started killing people, they're admitting to having killed 2,000 protesters, but unofficial figures put the slaughter rate, the slaughter tally, at more than 12,000. Now, if that awful old tyrant, the Ayatollah, living dead man, and his mad mullahs have indeed annihilated, slaughtered more than 12,000 people for protesting against their government, what is Donald Trump going to do about it? Is he going to take military action, bomb them, something like that? Or is he just going to, as he said yesterday, impose very serious sanctions? It's not what we expected. Is he going to bomb Iran? Should he bomb Iran? 03444991000. We will talk about that next. Stay tuned.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, a warm welcome. We need to talk about Iran and what's happening there. Massive protests continue all over the country. We're hearing now from unofficial sources that more than 12,000 people may have been slaughtered by the Ayatollah's mad mullahs. They're admitting to 2,000. Donald Trump last week said if they start killing people, there's going to be trouble. Well, they're not only killing people, they're killing a great many people. So let's find out what's going on from the executive director of the Henry Jackson, not Institute, not my fault, that's the producer's fault, from the Henry Jackson Society, Dr. Alan Mendoza. Hello, Alan.
Hello, Kev.
Yeah, it's my producer. He put Institute. It sort of stuck in. I thought, what is that? You know. Anyway, what can you know?
Here we are.
If you pay peanuts, you know. No, he's a good guy. Right, let's talk about Iran. What do you make? Unofficial figures now are suggesting that the Ayatollah and his mad mullahs and his murderous troops may have killed more than 12,000 protesters. Officially, they seem to be conceding that as many as 2,000 may have died. Now, last week, President Trump said if they start killing their protesters, if the Iranians start killing their protesters, there will be serious results. Now, so far, yesterday, he said, oh, well, I'm going to put some really serious sanctions on. You deal with Iran and we'll put a 25% tariff on any deals you do with us. Well, okay. Yeah, but that's not exactly what we expected. So my question to you is, do you expect President Trump and indeed America to launch some kind of bombing raid, to start taking military action against Iran? And if not, why not?
Well, I'd hope they would do it, Kev. But I think, you know, always expect the unexpected is pretty much the watchword of the Trump administration. So what they'll actually do, I don't know. There are a number of options. They go all the way from, as you say, major bombing raids, which are targeting elements of the regime. They could be targeting the IRGC, who are, of course, committing the murders in the streets, or the besieged militia, who are doing the same sorts of things. They could look to decapitate the top of the regime in the way that they did with Maduro, although you're not going to see sort of Black Hawks flying in and spiriting out the Ayatollah in quite the same way. There could be cyber attacks to diminish the ability of the regime to try and kind of keep order on its streets. They could do things like that. They could again look at command and control sites locally to see if they can help the protesters overcome the opposition on the ground. There's a lot of options. So I think we're all waiting to see what sending help means from Donald Trump's perspective in this particular conflict.
Well, from a layman's point of view, Western point of view, obviously it'd be a very good thing for Iran to fall, yes, for the end of this theocratic tyranny. This would be good for the West. This would be good for Israel, good for the Middle East. So I would contend that we really ought to be helping these protests along the way. We really ought to be helping them, because I would say, Alan, that we'll never have a better opportunity to help topple this awful old dictator, the Ayatollah, and his insane regime. So one would hope that Trump will seize this opportunity.
Well, yes, one would hope. And you've nailed it there. And basically, here we have a situation where happily, for once, the moral case and the strategic case are overwhelmingly in the same place. The moral case is to remove this evil regime that, obviously abuses human rights domestically, murders its own people by the bucket load. I mean, look at the rate of murder. I mean, there were people shouting on the streets that Israel was committing genocide when they had done a fraction of that in a legitimate war. And here they're killing their own people at the rate of thousands a week. It's insane looking at what's going on the ground. And it's a regime that, as you know, threatens its neighbors. It threatens us internationally, nuclear weapons. Come on, this is absolutely a case where the moral case and the strategic case for removing a regime is absolutely top of the line.
And we learned today, for example, that a 26-year-old protester who was arrested last Thursday in the city of Fardis, his name is Irfan Soltani. He's been sentenced to death. And the Tehran's Attorney General, Mohammad Movahedi Azad warned that anyone participating in this rebellion will be considered, and I quote, an enemy of God and will face the death penalty. So this regime is responding in its time-honoured fashion, only probably even more ruthlessly than ever before, to this protest, to this rebellion, by slaughtering its own citizens. Don't we in the West, including America and maybe us as well, have some kind of moral duty to try and stop this?
Well, I would say again, the moral case is there. But you'll know there have been cases where people have been murdered by their governments and we haven't done anything. So, I would appeal to people who don't want to go on the moral case, go on the strategic case. Here is an enemy of the West. It's been an enemy for nearly 50 years now, which has caused trouble for the region, destabilized it, led us into all sorts of conflicts. And here it is on its, on its last legs. Give it a push, it'll fall over, and it'll be replaced by something better. So if you're not moved by the moral case, you can be moved by the strategic case to say it's in our interest to get engaged and involved and to see the end of a regime that has directly threatened us for so long.
Alan, let's just catch up with Yvette Cooper, the Foreign Secretary's latest statement on this. She said this afternoon. Let's have a listen.
The UK will bring forward legislation to implement full and further sanctions and sectoral measures. The UK has already designated key players in Iran's oil, energy, nuclear and financial systems. Further measures will target finance, energy, transport, software and other significant industries which are advancing Iranian nuclear escalation. And we will work further with the EU and other partners to explore what additional measures might now be needed in response to developments.
What did you make, that's today, Alan, what did you make last weekend, I mean, in the lead up to last weekend, Thursday and Friday, two topics to discuss here. One, the government's strange, muted response to all of this. I mean, essentially, she's being a little tougher there, but Yvette Cooper and Keir Starmer, ever since this came to the fore last Thursday or so, all they've been saying is we call upon the Ayatollah to respect the right of Iranian citizens to peacefully protest, which, considering they were being killed in their hundreds by then, was an empty kind of statement, to say the least. Also, this time last Thursday, Friday, even more curious was the muted response of the BBC. It wasn't even top of their news schedule on Thursday. It was dragged kicking and screaming there by Saturday. But the BBC was treating it as, a relatively minor mid-schedule story. Why do you think that was? We're hearing from sources at the BBC that they were saying, well, so much of this is difficult to verify. It was on film. What do you make of the strange reticence of both the government last week and the BBC to get tough about this story?
Well, Kev, I think we all know there's only one country with an eye in the Middle East that gets people going in the government and the BBC, and it isn't Iran, it's Israel. In Israel, one man protests in the street against Benjamin Netanyahu. The BBC gives it top billing on its homepage, whereas, of course, millions of Iranians have come out and do it and no interest at all. But this doesn't fit into the narrative, does it? It's awkward. This is awkward because these are people who really want their freedom against an evil clerical regime. And of course, no doubt the BBC is scared of being seen as Islamophobic or something if it dares, mention this sort of point. And as for the government has just got no foreign policy to speak of, full stop. It doesn't have a clue strategically. It has no sense of what it wants to achieve internationally. And so therefore, when something like this, happens, an opportunity to reshape the Middle East, by supporting the brave people, not doing it ourselves, not saying we are going to commit regime change. The people on the streets are the ones who want regime change, not us. We want it because we want them gone, but we're not the ones driving it. Help the people become free. It's an obvious point to do that. We do need the big dog to bark. The big dog here is, of course, the USA. They're the power who can affect change most quickly here. And what we should be doing is speaking to the US about how they should be doing more and how we can assist them.
In your expert opinion, Alan, where will we be this time next week? Do you think this uprising, these protests, will succeed in toppling the awful Ayatollah?
Well, look, I hope they will, but that the regime is resilient, number one. Number two, if we don't intervene and help the protesters in some way, they will be just literally murdered, and that is what will keep them in check. And the regime has shown that it is willing to go to the most extraordinary lengths to do that, and so our job should be to weaken the regime, however we can do, to stop it killing its people and allow the, if you like, the playing field to be levelled here. Let the protesters, have what they want in this respect. If we can do that, then there might be change. If we don't do that, though, my fear is that they'll be driven back because of the sheer violence that will be enacted against them, and we will end up with this regime still in power. So let's hope that the powers that be have got a plan as to how indeed help is going to be on its way.
The Iranian people covertly are famously very pro-Western. They do not like the impositions that this tyrannical regime have imposed on them over the years since 1979. They've never liked it. If they succeed, if, fingers crossed, America goes in and helps them and this protest finally gets rid of this tyrannical dictator and his awful mad mullahs, and regime change actually happens, we no longer have this theocratic, sort of anti-Western, fanatical country, Iran, in the Middle East. It becomes a very different country. If that happens, just very quickly, massive question, of course, how will that improve tension in the Middle East?
Well, obviously, what you want firstly is to have a government in place to replace what happens. You can't have chaos. You don't want instability like that. The obvious choice would be Reza Pahlavi, the son of the last Shah, not to reconstitute the monarchy per se, but to have an establishment figure who can unite people around a transitional government that can then get Iran working again. If Iran is working again for its own people, let's think of the following. It won't be spending money on nuclear weapons. It'll be spending money on improving the condition of its people. It won't be spending money on supporting terrorists elsewhere. So those terrorist movements, Hamas, Hezbollah, will fall, apart because of the lack of support, which means that Lebanon, Israel, other countries become safer as a result as well. We won't have to invest as much in supporting our Gulf allies who are directly menaced by Iran in that way. Basically, you take out the biggest destabilizing factor in the Middle East overnight and you turn it into a stability factor. That's good for the Middle East, but it's also good for us because it means that we can focus on trade and prosperity and peace in the region rather than war.
And of course, the final point I'd like to make personally is that, of course, if Iran falls, that's a triumph for Israel, which in my view explains the reticence of the government and the BBC to get behind this story and to actively support what could be an extraordinary event in the Middle East. They don't like the idea of Israel in any way achieving some kind of success over there, do they?
Well, you may be right, Kate, but it's mad because it wouldn't be Israel's success; it'd be all of our success.
Exactly.
Israel would simply have the benefit of not fighting a constant war against an enemy that wants to annihilate it. It will be able to live in peace. That's a victory for everyone, of course, not just Israel.
Alan, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Really good to talk. Thank you so much. Executive Director of the Henry Jackson Society, Dr. Alan Mendoza, a serious expert in this affair. So he's saying what I think a lot of us hope, certainly I hope, that Donald Trump comes good on his promise to take serious action. I mean, sanctions, forget it. They've already got, that's the reason Iran's economy is in such a terrible state, because they've suffered decades of serious sanctions. What I'm hoping for, I don't know what you're hoping for, is that America starts bombing the mullahs, gets rid of that old git, the Ayatollah. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. Let's go to break. We'll take some phone calls after this break. And after the 9 o'clock news, I'm very thrilled to welcome to the show Selina Scott, the former newsreader, television personality, television star, who, like me, is a bit of an animal welfare campaigner. And she is very angry about halal slaughter. Rather, she's angry that the Labour Party's animal welfare paper, 12,500 words long, doesn't even mention ritualistic religious slaughter of animals, which is cruel. We'll talk about that after the 9 o'clock news. But you next, 0344 499 1000. Stick around.
Why would you ban the burqa?
I would ban all face coverings because to me that is not an open society. It is not a if you need to hide your face, then there potentially could be an element of crime. So I would like to see the Met Police treat every face covering as a reason for stop and search. I don't know who's behind that burqa, and I don't know who's behind a COVID mask or a face mask. So I want every face covering to be treated as stop and search.
Okay, that works. I've got to be honest, that works for me. We're all nodding away here.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You know, it always makes me laugh when you get talk presenters generally on the show. They're always reading out these messages. You're brilliant, you're amazing, you're amazing. Oh, thank you very much. I've had a message here and it hasn't got a name on it. But I don't like to read out these messages because it's a bit big-headed, isn't it? This message says, no name. They probably didn't want to put a name to it. It says, Kev, you're so brilliant. Yeah, well, you keep on thinking that. But thank you very much, very kind of you. Lucy sent a more serious message. Oh, well, no, it is serious to call me brilliant, isn't it? Fantastic interview, Lucy says, with Ben Habib. Thank you so much. Love him. I do share his fears on digital ID, that this climb down by Starmer is not really the end of the matter. I tend to agree with that. It would be great to hear you putting Ben's fears to Rupert Lowe, who seems to think that this climb down by Starmer is a victory. I'm afraid I think we're being quietened down for the time being, but don't believe we're out of the woods yet, and we need to quash the whole concept of digital ID, which is quite simply evil. Lucy, I agree with you. We're not out of the woods with it, but I also think Rupert Lowe is correct. For those of us who are passionately against this Soviet papers, please, Soviet-style documentation of all of us, the ID system. I think this is a victory. The climb down, it's not over, but it's a, what's the word, a Pyrrhic victory. There's a way to go in the war, but I think we're winning. Let's get a quick call in before we go to break. Let's talk to Roy in Hampshire. Hello, Roy.
Hello, Kev, me old China.
Hello, mate. You want to talk about the boats?
Well, it is, mate. I rang up when your legal guy was on earlier on. What is the legal position of us stopping the boats? 11 miles out from our side, stopping them. If they jump overboard, we save them and get the French to come and pick them up and take them back.
Well, we can't be involved in any sort of system whereby, you know, people drown, end up in the channel. So human life is paramount, of course. As for the legality, some people say that if the Navy went in and stopped them mid-channel, it might be against maritime law. Others say it's not against maritime law. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure that I would. I mean, I think we should stop them getting on the boats in the first place. You know, stopping them at sea is a dicey business. So somehow or other stop them in the first place. But if they do get here, you know, be quite tough with them. You know, it's all very, very difficult, Roy.
Well, all they got to do. I mean, if we stop giving them flaming money, mate, at 4-star hotel.
Well, you see, there you're onto something. If it, you know, what we need is deterrence, as opposed to.
Take them down to Dartmoor, mate, or up the wilds of Scotland.
Do you know Dartmoor's closed? Dartmoor's closed. Do you know that? It's not. It doesn't work anymore. It's closed because of radon gas. 1,500 prison cells going begging.
It's a bit desolate down there.
Well, yeah, but they can't use Dartmoor. But what we've got is a series of enticements. What we say to these people, if you get here, you get a free hotel, you get 50 quid a week, get free food, free lawyers, free dentists, free doctors, free everything. These are incentives, they're not deterrents. We need to send a message that if you get here, you don't get anything, and therefore they won't come. That's how to stop them. Stop the incentives, bring in deterrence. That's my view, Roy. Thanks for a good call, as always. Roy in Hampshire. We're going to go to break now. When we come back, I'm very pleased to say that I'm going to be joined by the TV presenter, former newsreader, former TV star, Selina Scott, who, like me, is an animal welfare campaigner. So I'm looking forward to talking to her about halal slaughter. She's against it, and so am I.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Regular listeners will know that the chink in my tough guy armour is I hate animal cruelty. I hate cruelty to animals. I'm an animal welfare obsessionalist, really. And I was very impressed and moved to read a piece in the Mail on Sunday by Selina Scott, the very famous Selina Scott. She pointed out, astutely and brilliantly, if you ask me, that Labour have recently published a 12,500 word paper on its animal welfare programme, its plans to tackle the issue of animal cruelty, and I'm all for that. Well done, Labour. But what Selina has pointed out, or did point out, that nowhere in this welfare paper, this animal welfare paper, is there a single mention of barbaric halal slaughter. This is the practice by which, in Britain, generally speaking, it is illegal to just kill animals by slitting their throats. You're not allowed to do that. You have to stun them first, because obviously to take a live animal and just slit its throat and let all the blood come, and apologies for this, but this is what happens, and let all the blood come out, is unconscionably cruel. Now, the exceptions for this law are ritualistic slaughter, which involves halal and I believe kosher meat as well for the Jewish faith. Now, only 12% of halal meat is now not pre-stunned, but the figures involved in the number of animals that are killed in this awful way are quite mind-boggling. So a warm welcome to the show to Selina Scott. Selina, thank you for joining me.
Kevin, hello. It's nice to talk to you tonight, and congratulations on airing this subject, because the BBC hasn't aired it. None of the national newspapers, other than the Mail on Sunday, have aired it. It's been going on for years and years and years, as you know. And we get no further forward. This cruelty is escalating.
Now, it seems to me that a lot of Muslims and a lot of Jewish people just say, well, fair enough, this is cruel, this is medieval, let's turn a blind eye to it and let's not kill animals without stunning them first. Fair enough. But the RSPCA says that 12% of halal meat is not pre-stunned. And that adds up to this. That means that in a year, 2024, last year, 30 million chickens, sheep, goats and cattle were killed while fully conscious.
That's the lowest number. Some people have put it up to 200 million. The National Secular Society and the Conservative Welfare Foundation found 100 million animals were being killed like this. Throat slit, cattle taking 6 minutes to die. Oh. I mean, this is, as you said, so well unconscionable. And actually, I mean, I've been deluged like you. There's so many people out there who love animals, brought up with animals, love animals, know that animals suffer. I mean, I've just got one tonight from Tracy. Let me get this right. Tracy Bailey. Yeah, Tracy Bailey's racehorse trainer. She trained the Grand National winner, Mr. Fritz, in 1990. She says, you know, thank you for having the courage to speak out and to say what so many people think but feel unable to express. And she wants to know what she can do. I mean, the only thing that she can do, we can do right now, is to sign these 2 petitions that are going through Parliament. They've got to get 100,000 signatures on each of them, and that's just to try and have labelling put on this stuff. But come on, I mean, it should be banned. There should be no labelling. There should just be. We should know in our 200 odd abattoirs, these animals are going to be killed humanely. End of.
What do you make, Selina, of the fact that a lot of us, actually I don't eat meat, so it doesn't really refer to me, but a lot of people are eating halal meat, halal slaughtered meat, without even knowing it. That's got to be wrong. That's got to be wrong, hasn't it?
Yeah, I heard tonight again that the armed forces are eating halal meat because the armed forces don't want to offend Muslims. So they're just making everyone eat this meat. Children in schools, there's a child in a Welsh school asked her father why she was being given this thing called halal, because a lot of people don't even know what halal means. They think it's something that's good for them, a vegetable perhaps, but this little girl had asked her father. It had gone all the way through to her MP, and the MP had been reprimanded for asking the question, why is this child being fed this brutally killed animal when she doesn't want to be fed this stuff? The whole thing's been, like the grooming gang scandal, silenced. Everyone just keeps quiet about it. Nigel Farage has said, no, he's not going to ban it. Okay? Kemi Badenoch said she hasn't come into Parliament or into politics to deal with animal welfare, so she's not interested. The Labour Party are in hock to their Muslim constituents, as you've just said, they won't ban it. So what do you do? Where do you go? But there are thousands, if not millions of people in this country who are utterly appalled and sickened by this.
Absolutely. And in fairness, we should say that this form of slaughter refers to sort of kosher meat as well, the Jewish system as well. But as you pointed out in your piece, this doesn't excuse it, but there are only 277,000 Jews in this country, whereas there are 4 million Muslims. So the scale of it in terms of halal is much larger. What is the response the response from the government seems to be, well, let's talk about the RSPCA, which I've had a lot of dealings with, and I've always found them to be somewhat dubious in their defence of animals. But anyway, the RSPCA and an organisation called Compassion in World Farming say they are prioritising high standards of welfare on farms rather than focusing on the issue of halal and kosher meat. Well, is that good enough from organisations that are supposed to be devoted to campaigning against cruelty to animals? This is cruel.
Of course, Kevin, it isn't. I mean, I've had long conversations with emails with Compassion in World Farming and the RSPCA, demanding that they get behind these petitions, demanding that they stand up and come from behind their empty slogans. They want to ban it, but they don't do anything about it. They seem to me to be in league with the government. I mean, the RSPCA was set up as something totally separate from politics and government to try and protect animals in 1823. But they seem as though they've just given up the ghost on this one. The Compassion in World Farming, I know they've got a lot of work to do. I know they've got huge problems with animal welfare, but this is the one thing that they could do. I mean, back in the 1980s, I went to Kenya with a CBS film crew to capture film of elephants being slaughtered for their ivory. We brought back the most horrific footage of baby elephants with teeny bits of ivory being taken off them, and this footage went out coast to coast in America in the 1980s, and within weeks a ban was brought in by CITES, the body that governed endangered species. It banned the sale of ivory, and with that one move, it protected thousands upon thousands of elephants. This is what's got to happen in this country. Compassion in World Farming, the RSPCA, anyone who has any inkling of what goes on in these abattoirs, should all of us come together and demand a complete ban. End of.
And what do you make, Selina, of a government, a Labour government? As I say, good for them with this animal welfare paper in general. They made a big thing of saying we're going to ban live boiling of lobsters, and we're going to ban trail hunting, because trail hunting so often leads to genuine fox hunting. And if you've ever seen a fox at the end of a fox hunt, let me tell you, you will oppose fox hunting. What do you make of a government that makes a big thing of this, writes a 12,500 word paper, but does not mention ritualistic slaughter? I mean, you know, I don't want to get too political about this, but this does sort of fit into a bit of a pattern with this government. They are very sensitive about potentially offending the Muslim community. Do you think that's what's at play here?
Yeah, the whole lot of them are. It's not just the Labour Party. Every single political party is the same. They're all running scared of offending religious minorities. To bring in this exemption in the first place in 1933, which is when it was first brought in, to allow the Jews, they numbered about 300,000 then, and Muslims, which numbered about 10,000 then, that should never have been allowed. But there it is, and 100 years later, these Levantine customs are still in place, and they're being abused. And we've now got 4.1 million Muslims in this country, and we have this god-awful cruelty. I mean, if you read what Jim Pace, the farming minister, had to say, and George Eustace, the farming minister, I mean, these are tough guys who, you know, Jim Pace particularly a farmer. Rupert Lowe, bless him, he's the only politician who was able to come out and say, ban it. End of. We should not be going through this performance in these abattoirs with these poor animals. These farmers can describe how they spent the most horrifying minutes of their life watching these animals die.
Let me read, Selina, a paragraph from let me read a paragraph from your powerful piece in the Mail on Sunday, just so I confront the audience. I apologise, but then again, I don't apologise for confronting the audience with what this is all about. Let's talk about little lambs. You know, lambs, right? They are They are taken to market, they are shackled, hauled by their back legs onto a conveyor belt, and while still bleating, their throats will be cut. They will bleed to death, fully conscious, for up to a minute in terror and pain. That should not be happening in Great Britain in 2026, should it?
No, and if you read on and you read the account by Jim Pace, Kevin, it talks about a bullock and how a bullock had to go down on its knees.
Oh, God.
And in 6 minutes, he watched this bullock bellow in pain. Bellow in pain. How? And these are the men who brought in private members' bills to try and stop it, and still Parliament wouldn't pass it. The people who represent us in Parliament just do not, because we are an animal-loving nation. We always have been. I hope always will be. But unless this stops, we've gone down the road. We're too far down the road. Do you know that even now we're exporting this stuff? We're exporting animals that have been killed barbarically, inhumanely, to other countries in the world because we've got so much of it. It's going through our abattoirs because it's cheaper to do it, it's easier to do it. They've got the systems all worked out, and we just got to put up with it. We go to a supermarket, we don't know what we're buying. You go and pick up a steak, or you pick up a piece of pork. Well, pork is different because, of course, Jews and Muslims do not eat pork or pigs. So it's chickens, goats, beef, lamb, and it's mainly lamb. I mean, you go and look at the fields around where I live here, and it's packed. They're packed with sheep. You know, one man can get through 6 lambs in a year. So that's just one person and his family. So we're now producing so many lambs that are being killed like this that we're in danger of not being able to stop it if we don't do something soon.
I'm presuming from the fact that only 12% of halal meat is actually, shall we say, the full 9 yards, you know, the full ritualistic slaughter, the slitting of the throats before stunning.
They say that, Kevin. But like everything else, it's all hidden. It's all beneath the surface. No one really knows how many are going through this system.
By the way, Sally, you know, I'm a bit ignorant on this kind of issue. Why is it that both the Muslim faith and the Jewish faith require this of animals before they eat them?
Well, first of all, the Quran states quite clearly that its followers should be kind to animals. It says it quite clearly. And yet this is a custom. As I said, it's been brought from the Levant. It's the way that animals were killed in medieval times, presumably when there was a small number, and the knife was sharp, and they just went like that, and the blood drained, and that was the way of killing these animals. We've now got an industrialized process where it takes forever. It takes forever for a cow, for a bullock to die. It's got a third artery, which means that you cut one and the other one is still popping.
God.
It's feeling the pain, it's bellowing in pain, it's confused, it's terrified. You know, you've been brought up with animals as much as I've been brought up with animals. Animals suffer, they feel pain. I've got a little dog at the moment who's got arthritis. He doesn't like going out in the cold. And now he lets me know that he's suffering. You know, if you don't care for animals, what kind of person are you?
I agree. And Rupert Lowe said, freedom of belief does not mean freedom to cause cruel and brutal pain. We talk so much in this place, he's talking about the House of Commons, of course. We talk so much in this place about being a nation of animal lovers. It is time to prove it. He's right, isn't he?
Absolutely right. And he seems to me to be the only sane voice in the whole place. There are one or two others, Andrew Rossendale, who stood up and said this shouldn't happen, but they're overwhelmed by the voices of, oh, you can't offend religious minorities. I'm sorry, you know. What about the people who are secular? What about the people who are Christian? What about the people who just do not want to see animals suffer?
What about the animals? What about the animals? what about the animals? You know, that's the main thing, is that we can't do this anymore. Well, listen, Selina, thank you so much for coming on. I'm picking up the mantle on this one. Hopefully you'll come on again and we'll talk about this again. I'm not going to drop this one. And thank you for a great piece in the Mail on Sunday.
Thank you, Kevin. Talk to this girl, this Tracy Bailey. Talk to her.
Yeah, good idea. Good idea.
Have a word with her, because she looks after racehorses. She's looked after animals all her life.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear. This is something that you're so right. There's been I've been deluged with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to spend the next week going through and trying to get people on side and try and think of a campaign and a way of getting this stopped. But if you can help, Kevin,
I'm going to help. If I can help in any way, I'm your man. Seriously, great to talk to you. And as I say, I'm not dropping this one. Thank you so much, Selina. All the best. Selina Scott there. Fantastic piece you wrote in the Mail on Sunday. This has got to stop. This has got to stop. It's not about religion. It's not about being Islamophobic or anti-Semitic or something like this. This is about Britain in 2026. This is not civilized. You heard what Selina said about the way these animals die in agony, sometimes taking 6 minutes. Imagine that, your throat cut, you take 6 minutes to die. That's what we're sanctioning here. So Labour need to stick into their 12,500 word animal welfare paper, about another, maybe another 1,000 words, but we'll give them 500, about banning ritualistic religious slaughter of animals. It is medieval, antediluvian, and I say it has got to stop. What do you say? 0344 499 1000. Give me a call about that if you'd like. We've got lots of other calls, of course. A lot of calls about Nadeem Zahawi and Ben Habib's comments on Reform UK's latest Tory recruit. So lots of calls after the break. So get on the blower. 0344 499 1000. Let's talk. It's good to talk on Talk.
These millions that she's milked the system of could have gone to the sort of causes that the government, not just this government, but the previous governments have embraced in terms of helping hard-working people to get struggle through with the cost of living.
I just wanted to ask you, sir, you're talking about the abuses of the welfare state, and I would never let Starmer off the hook. But this isn't something that's just reared its ugly head for in the last 18 months. People have been abusing the welfare system for years.
Across the UK. DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Right, it's the floor is open. It's for you for the rest of the show, all the way to 10 o'clock. That's about 35 minutes or so. So I've got lots of calls. At 10 o'clock, of course, Petri Hoskin will be in the studio to launch her show and take you through from 10 p.m. until 1 a.m. into the small hours. So lots still to come right here on Talk. Shall I see? This is from Margaret. I'm going to go to the phones in just a second. This is from Margaret. So good to hear Ben Habib, she says. Would be great to see Ben and Rupert back in reform. As I say, a long shot. And Starmer's 13th U-turn, what a joke. We await number 14. You're right about that, Margaret. This is from Amanda. Ben Habib, such a great guy, a real loss to the country by turning his back on Reform UK. Well, you know, political divide, you know. He didn't feel that Reform was his home his political home anymore. I don't think he turned his back, he just formed a new party. These things happen in politics. This is Ali. Can I read another one? Another one of these big-headed messages. Kev is the best presenter on Talk. Oh, I don't think anyone could argue with that. Thanks for having Ben on, says Ali. Thanks, Ali. Thank you very much. You're too kind. I mean, literally too kind. Let's go to the phones. Let's talk to James in Devon, and he wants to talk about Zahawi, Nadeem Zahawi. Hi, James. What were your thoughts on Zahawi being recruited from from the Tory party?
Well, Kev, you're probably right first time. But I'd just like to say, Kev, you are the best presenter on Talk.
Well, you can come on again, James.
Now, Kev, as far as I'm concerned, Nadeem Zahawi, it's too far. You know what I mean? It's like,
are you or were you a Reform UK supporter?
Yes, I voted Reform in the last election.
Okay.
I would have voted again. But
yesterday was the straw. Was Nadeem Zahawi for you one Tory too far?
Well, one Tory too far because, Kev, it just reminds me of the cuckoo bird that lays his eggs in other birds' nests.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's happening.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. I like that.
Yeah, we've got Nadine Dorris, we've got Mr. Zahawi. Every single one of them basically agrees with
Jake Berry, don't forget. You've got Jake Berry. You got who was? I mean, Jake's a bit of a friend of mine. I like Jake, but he's a Remainer. I'm not quite sure what he's doing in Reform UK.
Exactly.
Danny Kruger, who I've got a lot of time for. I think Danny Kruger, that is his defection to Reform UK was moral. He felt he didn't feel at home with the Conservatives. So I don't have a problem with that. But I think a lot of people feel that Zahawi is a chancer. He's a guy, drummed out of politics because of his dodgy tax affairs, going nowhere in the Tories, sees that the Reform UK party are in the ascendancy, fancies hitching a ride on that bus. That's the way I see that. Do you agree?
I totally agree with you. And we've got a former Chancellor of the Exchequer, that basically diddled his taxes. Now, as far as I'm concerned, Kev, he is a cuckoo bird nesting in our nest, just like the rest of the Tories that basically see a gravy train opening up for themselves. Nigel, what are you doing? Because as far as I'm concerned, after listening to Ben, and by the way, Kevin, I have to congratulate you. I think that's the first time I've heard him on Talk TV.
Since July, I can tell you, since July.
Yeah, and it was a pleasure listening to this man.
Wasn't it just? Yeah.
Absolutely. Same as Rupert Lowe. The man is a legend. And as far as I'm concerned, Nigel and Richard Tice, what are you doing?
Yeah, do you think they need to... Look, I think you've got to cut Nigel and Richard and the Reform Party some slack. You know, they can't sort of say, oh, no more Tories are allowed to come. But I think they should... They certainly owe Reform UK members an explanation about Zahawi. It's all very well saying, oh, well, you know, he's a very experienced operator. He knows how government works. He's worked at the highest levels of where... Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you one thing that worries me about Zahawi, more than his chancellorship, more than his devoted service for a party that let the nation down, betrayed the nation. It was the fact that he was the vaccine minister during the COVID crisis.
Yeah, and he wanted the children to override their parents. And I'm just going to have to say this, Kevin. Every single Tory that's been taken into the party agreed with Boris's wave. As far as I'm concerned, you're as bad as Labour and the Liberal Democrats. Stay out of our party. Let us go forward and take the UK where it should be without you.
And, I mean, will you... I mean, I've got a note from my assistant producer saying that you won't be voting for Reform anymore. Will you vote for Ben's party, Advance UK?
No, I'll be voting for Rupert Lowe's party.
Well, no, he's very keen to say it's not a party, it's a movement. Restore Britain, it's a movement. But that he's your man, is he?
Kevin, everything that man says is absolutely true. The Reform have tried to basically say that he's got dementia, he had guns. No, all he tried to do was try to warn you what you're doing. Do not bring these people into the party because they are silent, sleeping dogs that will rip us apart from the inside.
That's a really interesting viewpoint, James, and really appreciate you calling. Really good call. Call me again. James in Devon making his feelings plain. Do you agree with James? I'm getting the impression from all my texts and my phone calls from you wonderful people that a lot of Reform supporters are very disillusioned about Zahawi. Because he was a dyed-in-the-wall Tory, a dyed-in-the-wall part of the Tory party that for 14 years betrayed this country. We heard him in 2013 at the Oxford Union going on about, you know, oh, let more and more migrants come in, you know, we must let migrants come in, otherwise Somalia will suffer. Oh, what a shame. You know, so... You know, he was part of the Tory party that took us down. I know that a lot of Conservatives were not happy during those years, but the trouble with Zahawi was he did seem to be very happy, part of the Conservative establishment that betrayed this country. Suddenly he's saying, oh, they let the country down. Yeah, well, you let the country down. Vaccine minister? Vaccine minister? I don't think so, do you? Let's take another call, shall we? Let's talk to Kevin in Leicester. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin. You all right?
Yeah, good, mate. What would you like to say?
First thing I want to say is you are absolutely and utterly incredible, Kev.
What is this? Praise Kev night. Thank you very much, Kevin. You're very kind. You're literally too kind. We've had a good show. I've had some good guests tonight, so they've made me look good. What did you think about Ben Habib and what he was saying?
Okay, I'm going to be quick because I know you'll have to move on to other corners. I like Ben. I like what he says. And I'm not a fan of Nadine Zahawi, but I wasn't a fan massively of Jake Berry, and I'm not a fan of Nadine Dorries. Going back to what your previous callers just said, though, and I'm going to use his words there, pretty much all of them did what Boris said. Right? And this is my view on Nadine Zahawi. He doesn't really stand for anything. He's a very good businessman, and even Julie suggested this. I don't even think he's going to become an MP. There's a chance of it. I can't see him going into frontline politics again. He might be used as something else. I mean, I think he wanted to be a peer or something like that. And I'm not saying he will be that, but I just think he will follow whatever he's told to do. He's a very good businessman. And this point, I need to make. I've said this to you before, and other people need to remember this. What Nigel's doing, it's all very well Kemi coming out and Keir coming out, putting their little things out. They're just being politicians. He's building a party. He's going to need 600...
I know that. I get that. I get that, Kevin. I'm sort of, I'm not here to sort of deliver my opinion. I can sense that a lot of people are very disillusioned about Zahawi, but I take your point. Farage is involved in a project. He's got to make Reform UK look like a potential party of government. That is a momentous task. It's a momentous task. They have Mount Everest to climb. I believe For if anyone can pull that off, it's Nigel Farage. But I do think he's got to be careful. He seems to feel that look, big names, Zahawi, he's joined the party. Well, from what I'm seeing, a lot of traditional Reform UK supporters are not very keen on this at all. So just having an open door policy to every old Tory, a retirement home for clapped out Tories, I think is not a great idea.
No, but there have been some good other Tories that have come over.
Yeah, I agree with that. Danny Kruger, I think, is a fantastic recruit.
Danny Kruger, but Jonathan Gallis.
Yeah, I love Jonathan. Totally agree.
There's a lot of people that I haven't even spoke about like that who will think the same way.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they're going to follow his way of thinking. And I'm just a bit concerned because there's no way, in my opinion, I think Ben's great, by the way, that he's going to have a party big enough. If he does, it's only going to split the vote. And I totally respect Rupert Lowe for what he's done by creating a movement instead. Not to split the vote. His words. That's important. You know, we've got one chance at this. This government are diabolical. By the way, when I rang in, I'm going to move on because everyone else will say.
I've got to split in a minute. But go on, last point, Kev.
When I rang up, I said to your researcher, I said, I'm surprised you're not talking about digital ID. That's massive news.
We are talking about digital. We talked about it. We broke the damn story.
I was quicker than you. I got that fast.
All right, okay. You broke the story and I was second. Always second with the news. That's this show's policy. Listen, Kev, I'm with you all the way. I do think, we should cut Reform some slack, but I also think Farage has got to be careful. He can't just have an open door policy because he's really going to tick off a lot of Reform UK supporters. But you're right, he's probably our best bet, but let's see. Kev, great call. Kevin in Leicester there. Now, before we go to break, it is time now to find out how you could be in with a chance of winning a trip of a lifetime to San Francisco. Talk is giving away flights, a 3-night stay at a 4-star intercontinental hotel and £2,500 spending money, plus tickets to the Super Bowl to top it all off. Listen to find out how you can enter.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343-418-7260. Lines close 22nd January 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at TalkSport.com. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now. Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. A couple of more messages. What we got here? Let's have a look. Keir should, this is from Susan, Keir should personally pay for the costs of the cancelled digital ID. I wouldn't have it any other way. Your Tuesday evening show is my favourite with Stephen on with you. Stephen Barrett, of course, the excellent barrister. Thank you, Susan. But I mean, I wouldn't say, don't go running away with this. The digital ID programme has not been cancelled, but I think Rupert Lowe is quite right to hail it as something of a victory. Don't forget the whole raft, the whole premise, the foundation stone of the idea of digital ID cards was you couldn't get a job without one. And we're all going, well, what about insurance numbers? National insurance numbers. No. From now on, you cannot work. You cannot have a job unless you've got a digital ID card. Well, that was the whole point. It was supposed to tackle. They said it'll tackle black market employment. It'll tackle asylum seekers and migrants working illegally under the counter, etc., etc. Well, now they're saying you won't need an ID, a digital ID, to get a job. So that is a massive U-turn, and I think Rupert Lowe is correct to say that those of us, well, I wouldn't say I've campaigned against it, but I've shouted against it, but those people who have protested against the ID cards, I think today they can chalk down as something of a triumph, of a victory. This is a climb down, a big climb down. Let's go back to the phones and let's talk to Dan from Liverpool. I gather, Dan, you have now left Reform UK. Is that the case?
No, not 100%. So what we've been doing since Reform started, me and my friends started a small group, and now we're about 2,000 strong Reform voters in Liverpool, which isn't an easy thing to do in the Liverpool area.
All right.
And
it's a socialist Liverpool, yeah.
Trust me, it's not been easy. A lot of people in our group have actually been quite scared to voice their opinions because they're worried about their jobs and everything.
Yeah, sure.
And what our group was designed for was to make people feel safe to be Reform voters, but also to hold Reform accountable. We don't just want to be a football team saying, oh, our team, no matter what we do, we want to hold them accountable, and when they make mistakes, we say we're not happy. And right now, we're really upset, and a lot of the members...
About Zahawi, you and your fellow Reform UK members in Liverpool are upset about Nadim Zahawi, am I right?
Yeah, exactly.
Explain why, Dan. Explain exactly why.
What we don't want to see, we don't want to see the Tories jumping off this socialist Titanic and run into the Reform lifeboats. And every single person who has said, oh, you have to accept them, just listen. If tomorrow Reform said, oh, we've invited this new member, Angela Rayner, would everyone accept that? Or would they have something to say?
Yeah. What is it, Dan, explain to me, I mean, have you and your fellow Reform UK members in Liverpool, have you objected to every Tory that's crossed the line, as it were, across the House or across the political border? I mean, I personally think Danny Kruger is a great recruit. What is your feeling generally about Tories joining Reform UK? Are you against all of them or only some of them? Because Zahawi, frankly, comes across like a political opportunist, a chancer trying to jump on a wagon to save his political career, which was over until yesterday.
Exactly. We have no problem if someone actually believes in the party and actually wants to put the UK first. If someone would, like Robert Jenrick, wanted to join, someone we can fully trust, we would have no problem. The only issue we have is it seems that anyone is coming who is accepted with an open invitation that we 100% don't trust. We don't want to just become Tory with a different rosetta on.
But you're not. But Dan, this is really important, I think, for the Reform cause. You're not just generically against all Tories joining the Reform UK party. It's just some Tories. I mean, Zahawi was vaccine minister, for God's sake. Zahawi was all for, opening the borders, letting more and more migrants in. Until yesterday, it didn't seem to me, I think he seemed to me to come across as someone on the left wing of the Tory party, and until yesterday didn't strike me he had a Reform bone in his body. What did you think?
It's exactly, we don't want flip-floppers. We've got enough of that with our Prime Minister at the moment. So we don't need people joining who one day will say one thing and then the next day change their mind at the drop of a hat. As I said, if it's people like Robert Jenrick, people we can trust, we have no problem. But please, if Farage is listening, or if someone can just say to him, we've only got so much trust. If not, we'll go for Ben Habib's party for someone we can trust and believe in the UK.
So at the moment, you're sticking with reform, but if you see any more Zahawi-like moves by Nigel Farage, you will consider defecting to Advance UK?
It's exactly like we said. If you get a chance to, and you can talk to Richard Tice, just ask him, would he accept Angela Rayner tomorrow if she said, oh, I want to join Reform just to save her own skin?
Well, exactly. Is that what you feel? I mean, Zahawi, to be fair, Zahawi is a self-made millionaire. He's a very clever guy. He owns, or he's launched YouGov, the polling company. He's made a lot of money. He's a talented guy. And, it wouldn't have mattered to him whether or not he stepped back into the political arena at all, but he's decided to do it. My fear is, like so many politicians, he's interested in his status, his importance, and the potential for a peerage. And that's why I think he may have been tempted to join Reform. I'm just saying, I mean, I don't really have any skin in this game, but I, as a journalist or even as a citizen of this country, I'm somewhat sceptical about Mr. Zahawi's motives, and I sense, Dan, you are too.
As we said, it's not just Zahawi, it's every single one. How many are they going to... Is Boris Johnson going to sign up tomorrow?
I'll tell you what Boris Johnson should do. He should join the party that is his spiritual home, the Lib Dems, and bang on about windmills and solar panels like he loves to. Yeah, I mean, there you go. Listen, Dan, interesting, very interesting. Well, keep in touch. Give me another call. Let's talk about this. I think it's a fascinating issue. Dan from Liverpool there, leading light in the Reform UK party up there in Scousland, Merseyside, and, they're very disillusioned with this. I mean, there may be, we spoke to Kevin in Leicester who said he's not so disillusioned. And, and I get it. It's a difficult situation because, very tempting for Nigel Farage to say, listen, we got the former Tory Chancellor. It doesn't get bigger than that. In a way, it doesn't. Mind you, he was only Chancellor for, as I said, about 23 minutes, but he is a Tory Chancellor, massive Tory bigwig. No doubt about it, a very big Tory recruit. Was Farage tempted by the magnitude of Zahawi's name and his reputation? Who knows? 03444991000. Let's go to break. When we come back, we'll talk to Anthony in Lancashire, who wants to talk about Iran, and so do I.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, have taken that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. It's been a rip-roaring show, and I thank you for your company. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place, right here on Talk, 7 p.m. for another edition of the Political Asylum. We've still got 10 minutes to go, and we'll try and squeeze in 3 calls. The first one is Anthony in Lincolnshire. Anthony, you want to talk about Iran. What would you like to say?
Hi, Kevin. I'd just like to say a big thanks for having Ben Habib on tonight.
It was good to get him back, wasn't it? Good to get him back. He's talked such a lot of sense. Well, by the way, we've just done a deal with him, Anthony, so I can ensure that you'll tune in every Tuesday. Ben's going to come on every Tuesday at 8 o'clock for half an hour. So, well, I expect you to tune in every night, but especially Tuesdays, all right?
That'd be great.
See you next Tuesday, as they say. Right, let's talk about Iran, yeah?
As we know, obviously, Iran is basically it's the heartbeat of the Middle East for the Islamic Republic.
Yeah.
And what the Iranian people are doing, everybody's saying that they're protesting. They're not protesting. It's actually a revolution.
That's why I've got a note that you said. I think you're making a really good point. This is more that if we play this right, if the West plays this right, if Donald Trump plays this right, this is more than a protest. This is a rebellion, and as you say, hopefully a revolution. But what I fear, Anthony, is it cannot be a revolution without the help of America and the West. I do think we're going to need more than tough sanctions to topple this Ayatollah's regime over the edge.
I don't think sanctions are going to do anything.
I totally agree. Don't forget they've been suffering sanctions for now, for most of their existence, for decades.
Yeah, we do need strength. The Middle East, the Islamic Republic of Iran, are the ones that are behind the problems of all the world. The problems in Palestine, the problems everywhere. And they are funding terrorist organisations everywhere. And if we can stop this, we can get rid of this, and people in the world, in Europe, can find...
Are you still there, Ant? Oh.
What's going on at the moment.
Oh, this is getting to be a bad line. On the basis that maybe you can hear this and we can get a decent line, I was going to ask you. Well, he's gone. Bad line. What I was going to say is, why won't Britain, as Donald Trump says, prescribe the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, as a terrorist organisation? Why won't they do that? Donald Trump says we should. For some reason, Keir Starmer won't. Something to do with the Muslim vote, do you think? The number of terrible decisions this government and Keir Starmer make because of their craven pursuit of the Muslim vote is turning into a national disgrace, a scandal. It really is. What do you think? Why won't we prescribe? Why won't we ban as a terrorist group the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, a bunch of murderous thugs? Why don't we do that? I haven't got time I was going to put out the number, but we haven't got time to talk about it. But hold that thought for tomorrow. Right, let's go to, of course, Georgina in London. Hi, Georgina.
Good evening, Kevin. Well, you know, this government and the rest of the Western world were warned by the Emirati Foreign Minister Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed about the dangers of allowing the import of unchecked foreign nationals into our country because of the threat of both radical Islam and cultural differences. And the government, true to form, ignored these pearls of wisdom by a culture that knows firsthand what these people are capable of. I mean, we're being forced to pay for the privilege of housing, clothing, feeding, and also paying for the recreation of these culturally medieval illegal migrants. And now, how will we be repaid? By the rape of our women and children, Kevin. Why any government would think that it's culturally enriching, I can't imagine. How any government could put the women and children of our country at risk, knowing that this will end in tears, beggars belief, and it's in direct contradiction with the first rule of government. Serious criminals and serious offences are being committed by these third world waifs and strays, and the fact that they're welcomed here by our government on the basis of governmental virtue signalling and box ticking is sickening to the stomach when you take into consideration the very high price that the British people are paying. This government is giving totally the wrong message to these migrants. They have neither regard nor respect for our people or our cultural values, and they're being allowed to run amok with,
let's temper this just a little bit, Georgina. I totally agree with the sentiment of what you're saying, but we can't sort of say every migrant and every asylum seeker is some kind of rapist or some kind of person. You know, the majority of them, I think, are decent people, but too many of them are either being charged with or convicted of very serious offences, and the disproportionate number of sexual offences, rapes, sexual assaults, sex attacks, is really, really alarming when you bear in mind the cultures and the countries that they're coming from, where women are not respected like they are here.
Absolutely, Kevin. We never wanted this. One rape, one molestation, one murder by an illegal migrant is one too many. And the government sending their sympathies and telling us that they understand the pain that these people are going through after one of these horrific incidents now only adds insult to injury. Maybe we should hold the government accountable for the behaviour of these immigrants.
I do. I very much do. They keep letting them in, no questions asked. We've got 100,000 asylum seekers, or more than 100,000, in the country, most of whom we know nothing about.
Absolutely.
As I said at the beginning of the show, Georgina, the fear is we have imported a sex crime epidemic.
Well, we have done that, but it's a Conservative government before.
Oh yeah. I'm not blaming just Labour. I mean,
as well. But this government's lost control of immigration, Kevin. That's clear for all of us to see.
Yeah.
We're now all in danger due to their cultural incompetence. This is the truth that the Labour Party won't tell us. But we, as the British public, know. This is fact. We can witness the devastation of Labour cultural enrichment every day. And I can tell you now that it's absolutely devastating to this country and our population.
It is. It really is. Georgina, always a pleasure to talk to you. I expect you to call me tomorrow. You'd better. I see Georgina's calls as a feature of this show. Always a pleasure to talk to her. And she talks a lot of sense, doesn't she? She should get her own show. Better than me. Let's final call from another of my favourite callers, Tarquin in London. Hi, Tark. You want to talk about Zahawi? Happy New Year. We haven't spoken since the New Year, have we? Happy New Year to you as well, mate.
Now, nobody's going to... I mean, Georgina is brilliant, but nobody's as good as Mr. O'Sullivan. Come on now.
Well, right, fair. All right. You know, who am I to disagree? So Zahawi, what do you make of it, Tark?
Yeah, tell me what you think of this, guys. I think that, you know, they're plucking Nigel. There must be some rationale for it, because on the surface, on prima facie, as they say, as Stephen Barrett would say, it looks like, you know, he's picking the wrong Tories. Nadine Dorries, this Nadine guy.
Jake Berry, who I like Jake a lot, and he's a very smart guy, but he was a Remainer.
He was a Remainer.
You know.
Yeah, and I think the ones I'd like to see crossing the floor, even though some of them aren't there anymore, would be people like Andrew Bridgen, David Davis. That's a real true breaks. Mark Francois, real breaks.
Those kind of people, I agree with that, and I still say, you know, an idea of a blanket ban on Tories crossing over to Reform UK would be stupid. And I think, for example, Danny Kruger is a fantastic recruit. Nadeem Zahawi, I am not quite so convinced about.
And I think the reason I think that you've had callers on that just vocalise this, Kevin, is that they were saying, you know, like the Scousers in the Red Wall, all the good folks up there, they're really, really sort of sceptical now.
Well, no, I mean, you should see my switchboard. It is just full of Reform UK, disillusioned Reform UK members who just say, they basically say that this Zahawi is one Tory too many. You know, as I say, I think it would be a